Right, here we go. Southeast Consolidated Zoning Board meeting called to order. If we could get our roll call, please.
John Lloyd,
Present.
Kelly Rast. Present. Ken Klingensmith,
Present.
Fred Wingert,
Present.
Dennis Bolin on Zoom.
Present.
Thank you. And Emily Coleman. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you could read the hybrid meeting statement, please.
Sherry Cross. This meeting is now being recorded. Please silence all electronic devices. Please note this meeting is being held in the board hearing room with the zoning board members attending in person. There is also an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. If you are using Zoom, you may participate in the meeting using your computer, telephone, or other electronic device. For Zoom participants, chat will be disabled once the meeting begins. If you have tech trouble, please call 913-715-1700. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom app to notify planning staff of your desire to speak. To activate this function, click raise hand in the webinar controls at the bottom of the screen. By telephone, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. Please do not use the raise hand function until the start of the agenda item about which you desire to comment. We will take comments from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. The Zoom moderator will call on individuals who have raised their hand. The chairman may modify these procedures as needed to conduct an orderly and efficient meeting. All public speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period in order to accommodate all the speakers. When your name is called by the moderator, your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record, followed by your comments. If you share concerns, comments, or points made by others, please refrain from repeating those comments and instead note for the record that you agree with the previous individual's comments. There will be a 10 seconds remaining warning sound. For board members and presenters, please state your name every time you begin to speak so that the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting. We are presenting live and recording the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to agenda items. Any addition, deletion, or revisions to the agenda? If there's not, we entertain a motion.
This is Ken. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Emily Coleman, I second.
Right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're going with the agenda that we've got printed out here. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. See none. Disclosure of external contacts and discussions. See none. Okay, approval of the minutes from the June 1st meeting.
This is Kelly Rast. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 1st, 2022 meeting.
Fred Wingert, second.
Right, a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the June 1st, 2022 meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the meeting minutes of June 1st, 2022 stand approved. Board reports, Board of County Commissioner actions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Penley, County Planning Staff. For the Board of County Commissioners actions, the meeting last Thursday on June 30th, there are 2 applications that were considered by this board at last month's zoning board meeting. Conditional use permit for Hogue Concrete, contractor shop and outdoor storage south of 199th Street on the east side of Metcalf. That application was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. Another application that was considered by this board last month was a rezoning to a PRUR district and a preliminary and final plat for 5 residential lots for estates of Shadow Woods. That property is located in the vicinity of northeast corner of 191st and Knoll Avenue. That application was remanded back to the zoning board, and we expect that will be considered again at the August 3rd, the next meeting on August 3rd for this zoning board. The applicant requested that application be remanded, so they're considering potential revisions and reconsideration by the board. So we expect at the next meeting, they'll bring back an application that'll still need to be reviewed by staff, but that we expect that application will return. Those are the two applications for Board of County Commissioners actions.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Planning Commission actions.
Sean Penley, planning staff. Planning Commission met last week on June 28th. There are two items on the agenda for the Planning Commission: the election of officers. Chris Iliff was elected as the chair for the Planning Commission, and Roger Mason was elected for the vice chair. Then another discussion item was the upcoming planning priorities for the Planning Commission for the next year to 2 years. That discussion resulted in a few items that will be considered. That would be there'll be an update at the next Planning Commission meeting later this month on June 28th, I believe, or June 27th. Sorry, I don't have that date. But at the next Planning Commission meeting will be a discussion of those upcoming priorities and the next actions for the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you, Sean. Stillwell Community Plan.
Ken Clansmith, there's no update for this month.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on for business before the board. The first one, item A, continued from the June meeting, application number SE 22-211 REZ, rezoning 201st and Mission Road, application number SE 22-212 PDP, preliminary development plan, plat 201st and Mission Road, Hainem Brockway, applicant, and Husam Hayali and M. Yasser Mwana landowners. And so they'll be the applicants. Ready for the staff report. Diane?
Yes, thank you. Diane Wicklund, Planning Department staff. I would like to enter in the staff report dated, enter into the record, which is dated June 29th, 2022. I would also like to put into the record, just to include that there's several email letters from different neighbors in the back of the packet, and that those are being entered into the public record, as well as I received 2 emails after the packet was mailed out. So would also like to enter those into the record. The first one was from a Deborah Zook. She doesn't have an address, but it's an email dated July 6, 2022. And so enter that into the record, and it's just a picture. And that was just handed out to you as well. And then the second letter that came after the zoning board packet was mailed out. That second one, and you just got a copy of this as well, was from Janet Engel Johnson from 4330 West 207th Street, Bucyrus, dated July 4th, 2022. Just enter that into the record, and I'm probably not going to read it, but just kind of generally, she's talking about a row of large trees on her north property line, and that she just requests that row of trees remain untouched. So that's kind of generally what that email is. So just entering all that stuff into the record. So this subject property is located about 1/2 mile south of 199th Street on the west side of Mission Road. The property is vacant and it has rural zoning. The applicant proposes to rezone 68 acres from the rural zoning district to the planned residential neighborhood 2 district, the PRN 2 district, and a preliminary plat for the purpose of creating a 30-lot residential subdivision to be known as Blue Valley Reserves. The lots on the preliminary plat range in size from 2 to 2.5 acres. The proposed subdivision will have no new streets constructed by the developer. The proposed lots will have direct access to 201st Street Terrace, Delmar Street, and Granada Street. 201st Terrace will connect to existing Mission Road. Granada Street will connect to the existing Granada Street stub within the development to the north. The preliminary plat also shows landscape easements along the frontage of the plat along Mission Road. And the developer also plans to have signage and or some type of entrance feature and plans for the landscape easement and entrance features. And those will be provided at the time of a final plat application if approved. In addition, the preliminary plat shows 20-foot wide tree preservation easement along the south and western boundaries, which will preserve the existing tree rows in that area and will also serve as a buffer for the adjoining property owners as well as future property owners of the lots. So just to kind of go through some pictures here real quick. This is an aerial view of the subject property. It's outlined in blue. Here is kind of an aerial view of a more zoomed out adjacent area to the subject property where you can see different sized lots in the area. And then this is also an aerial view of the surrounding area that's kind of going out a little bit more mile in each direction. You can continue to kind of see the different sized lots in the area, and there's a mix of those lot sizes. And then here's the zoning map of the surrounding area. So you can see that there's a mix of zoning in the area from the RUR rural zoning, which has a 10-acre minimum. You see the RN1 zoning areas. Those have a 1-acre minimum. The PRUR, that subdivision has an overall density of 10 acres, but you can go down to 4 acres in that zoning. And then you also see PRLD, which is just to the north. That zoning district has a 3-acre nominal area, and lot sizes cannot generally go below 2.5 acres. And then up there, kind of in the right-hand corner, you can see PRN2 zoning, and that has a 2-acre minimum. And then just here's a copy of the preliminary plat, so I'll probably just leave that on the screen. So in terms of minimum infrastructure requirements, we have done that review. And in terms of the streets, the only item that the existing infrastructure did not meet was that the abutting roads have to be a type B collector street standard, which means they need a 4-foot shoulder. And so the developer has agreed to make that improvement of a 4-foot shoulder to Mission Road, just for the frontage of this plat along Mission Road. So once, once those street improvements then are made and stipulated, then it meets that requirement. So the only other item is a waiver in terms of the minimum infrastructure requirements. And so the plat meets all the minimum infrastructure requirements, but it does include one waiver from the installation of dry sewers, that requirement. And so staff, along with Johnson County wastewater staff, is recommending approval of that waiver from installing dry sewers because the chief engineer of the wastewater district is saying that sewer service won't be within a 15-year period of time. And so they're also recommending that waiver. And so then these lots will just have individual on-site septic systems. And they all meet that 2-acre minimum required for septic systems. So that's kind of a quick review of the infrastructure requirements. So if we go on to the golden analysis, the golden criteria. So we did review that, and as I was kind of going through those pictures, kind of pointing out different things. But generally, there is a mix of lot sizes in different residential zoning districts and rural and planned rural zoning districts that are close by the subject property, which lends the proposed rezoning and plat to be complementary to the neighborhood and the surrounding area. The proposed 2-acre zoning and the plat is consistent with the zoning and residential uses of nearby properties, and will blend in well with the varying lot sizes and zoning nearby. And this 2-acre minimum lot size that's being proposed will continue that pattern of low density residential uses in the area. In terms of detrimental effects to nearby parcels, in the short term, the detrimental effects just would be noise, dust, and construction traffic during construction of the subdivision. But then long term, after construction, there would be minimal detrimental effects. So in terms of the comprehensive plan, this property is actually located in 2 different policy areas in our rural comprehensive plan. The southern portion of the property is located in the rural policy area and is designated for and allows a density of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres. The northern portion and the majority of the property is located in the Blue Valley Plan area and is designated in the growth policy area for agricultural and residential use. And so this area calls for appropriate, orderly, and reasonable expansion of existing residential development areas if adequate infrastructure exists, which it does. We've already been through that infrastructure review. So the rezoning and the preliminary plat does comply with the minimum infrastructure requirements, except for that one waiver for dry sewers, and therefore is in keeping with the comprehensive plan. And also note that in the back of the packet is an email from the city of Overland Park with some comments about connectivity on this application. So also to note that there are a few proposed lots which do not meet either lot width requirement or lot depth width, the lot depth width ratio requirements for the PRN2 zoning district. However, this is a planned zoning district. And so through Article 11 of the regulations, there is some flexibility from that lot depth width ratio requirement. And so the lots mentioned that perhaps don't meet that ratio are at the end of the cul-de-sac street bulb and are triangular shaped due to the curve of the cul-de-sac bulb. And that this can be a typical lot configuration at the end of a cul-de-sac. So I just wanted to point that out. Also to talk just a little bit about the preliminary plat, as I stated before, does show connectivity. It shows that the new local street, 201st Terrace, is connecting to the existing Granada Street in the subdivision to the north, which is so this connection right here. And that does satisfy that requirement for connectivity. And so then that circles on around and then connects back out onto Mission Road.
So also to note, there's a memo from Public Works, the Public Works Department, and I believe Martin Tangera from Public Works is online on Zoom. If there's any questions for him. But the Building Codes Department just reviewed the application and just stated that, water main connections and fire hydrants will be required in compliance with the fire code. There's also the memo from Johnson County Wastewater that is their recommendation for supporting that waiver from the dry sewer requirement. So I think I might stop here. So planning staff is recommending approval of the rezoning and the preliminary plat or the preliminary development plan because of the plan zoning, but it's serving as the preliminary plat for the 30 lot subdivision. And also staff is recommending approval of the waiver from the dry sewer installation requirement. In addition, there are stipulations that staff is recommending on page 14 through 16. And those are just kind of our typical plat stipulations, nothing out of the ordinary. I think that's it. There's also a proposed motion on page 17. If the board wants that for reference. And then just as a reminder, those neighbor letters are in the back of the packet. So I think I'll stop there at this point, and if you have questions, I can answer those.
All right. Thank you, Diane. Questions from the board regarding the staff report?
Diane, this is Ken Smith. What was the consideration to not have this zoned as a PRLD versus a PRN2 since it backs up and is adjacent and connecting to a PRLD?
So the applicant was requesting the PRN2 zoning, and so that's what we reviewed. I believe we did have discussions about the PRLD zoning, but the applicant submitted a rezoning for the PRN2s.
Diane, Fred Winker, you mentioned that part of the property is RUR. What percentage? That was on the southern part of this parcel, is that correct?
Oh, no, the entire property, the 68 acres has all rural zoning. What I was talking about was
In regards
the
to the plan. then?
comprehensive plan.
Right.
And so there's kind of a ridge line, I think kind of through here. I don't know if you can really see my arrow. And so that matches up with that, with the comprehensive plan map. And so kind of north of that ridge line is that where it's in the Blue Valley plan area where you can go down to 2 acres if you have the minimum infrastructure required. And then this south south part here would be in the rural policy area of the comp plan, which is what I was, so it's kind of more this southern part.
So about 25% approximately.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, so the majority is in that growth policy area. But maybe a quarter.
This is Sean Penley, planning staff, to help answer that question. That it is difficult to determine the exact location. For the future land use map that was approved as part of the Blue Valley plan, it's general and approximate. It doesn't most of those future land uses don't follow exact property lines. They are in general areas. It was probably as a result of the ridge line, as Diane indicated, and maybe something to do with utilities service area or future watersheds potentially. But it was hard to, when we tried to match that up, we didn't have property lines on that future land use map. So they generally follow what Diane's saying. The majority of it is in the future growth area though for the city. So just a small portion of that southeast corner that would be not within that area.
Thank you.
This is Kelly Rast. Would you say it's fair to say that even though you have aligned it with certain criteria, we are kind of coming in at the lowest common denominator to make that happen? As far as either acreage or versus like all the other lots? Does that make sense? Like it barely meets a certain requirement and we're going with that lowest level and saying, oh, we're good, we're in there.
Are you talking about the minimum infrastructure requirements or?
Yeah, or however you want to look at highest density.
Well,
Instead of going with the higher averages of acreage, we're going with like barely meeting the lowest. And that just kind of sets, then the next time somebody wants to develop something, they're going to go even lower and start off at that low and go down versus kind of keeping the bar raised and staying either in at least in the average or the median versus like saying, oh, okay, we got 1 2-acre lot. We're going to match that and justify it. Would you say that's kind of fair?
well, so I think maybe you're referring more to the lot sizes and
Yes.
zoning in the area?
Mhm.
Okay. So, if you look at this aerial view here, you can see the different lot sizes, there's 2.5 to 3 acre lots here. These are 10 acres. Up here at this corner of 199th Mission are 2 acre lot sizes. And
I think
then-
those are larger. Yeah, I'm looking at a map here that has pretty much all the acreage. And we're really, going down to the lowest possible, matching the minimum. Anyway, so
Yeah,
That's
and
all.
then, if you kind of look farther west, you have smaller lot sizes. So I think staff, we were kind of, you're looking adjacent to the property, but you're also then kind of looking out a little bit farther like this map and kind of looking at the whole area. So, I think we looked at both and felt like, that 2 acre density lot size exists in the area and is consistent with other lot sizes. So that's just generally how staff was reviewing it, but
okay, thank you.
John Lloyd, Diane. So kind of tying Kelly's question and Ken's question together. The PRLD zoning designation, which they're not requesting, but which is adjacent just to the north. What are the lot sizes for the PRLD?
in regard to the subdivision regulations?
Yes.
So it has to be what they call a nominal 3 acre lot, which can include right of way area. But then it's not, and then I think it goes down to minimum 2.5 acres.
Yeah, the regulation actually reads, this is Ken Klingsmith, the minimum lot size shall be 2.5 acres, and every lot shall provide a nominal lot area of not less than 3 acres.
Mhm.
So you're spot on.
That's different than the PRN2, which is just a flat 2 acre minimum. There's not that nominal area that they take into consideration like they do in the PRLD. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. If there's no questions, then we're going to let the applicant and their representative speak. You guys have 10 minutes if you'd like to give a brief overview.
Don't start my time yet.
Mhm.
Todd Allenbrand, Payne and Brockway, 426 South Kansas Avenue, Olathe, Kansas. I'm here in person with our principal engineer, Mark Huggins, and attending virtually is Hassam Kayali and Yasser Mallah. First, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to come forth with the project. And we've read the staff report and we're in agreement with the staff report. But we would like some opportunity to respond to any questions that might be asked. But I can, if you don't mind, we don't really have a presentation, but I can address some of the comments that was brought up by the board. So we did originally come in all transparency, asking for PRLD zoning. And at the time we came in, we had all the lots at a minimum of 2.5 acres, except for a few up in the northwest corner because of the transition to get into the street tying into Granada. But through the process, we couldn't come to an agreement with county regulations and staff to have PRLD zoning with 2.5 minimum acres and rural type streets, which would be asphalt with a ditch section. The reason was because we couldn't meet the nominal lot acreage of 3 acres. But we felt like we were trying to meet that intent of the 2.5, the 3 acres because of the reserve of town and country. The lots in some of those cul-de-sacs are actually less than 2.5 acres net. So we were trying to meet the surrounding neighborhood. And since we couldn't get that worked out, then that's why we approached with the PRN2 to go down to 2 acres. Part of the requirement for PRN2 is you can't do rural style streets, asphalt with ditch sections. So we had to do curb and gutter, which obviously increased costs for the developer, as well as we have to install storm sewer, more storm sewer than normal, which also increased costs. So because of the cost increase, feasibly, we needed to increase the lots count. So that's part of the reason why we went this direction. And a couple things that staff talked about was some of the different land use categories that divide the property. So when they talked about the ridge line, just for some more information and clarification, the reason the Blue Valley study area was on a ridge line is those are typically designed to allow for dry sewers. So what would drain or fall towards a sewer treatment plant, that's why they hit the ridge lines. It has nothing to do with property lines. So they're somewhat ambiguous when they're looking, 10,000 feet in the air. And that's the reason for those studies. That's why you have the cutoff where it is. It would make more sense maybe if it was cut off at a property line, but they follow the drainage patterns for typically dry sewers. And then you talked about the lot sizes going down less than 2 acres. Johnson County Environmental in rural settings will not allow any lot to be below 2 acres. And if it is, it has to have dry sewers. Rather, that's a gravity fed or some type of low pressure system, then that's what would happen if you would go down to less than 2 acres. So we're not purposely trying to get to the low bar on anything. I mean, it's just driven by market and costs and where we had to end up based on discussions with the county staff. I think that's really about it. So we're here, to answer any questions and follow up with any concerns. And I thank you for letting us to be your opportunity to be in front of the board.
Thank you. I think there's going to be some questions, or I have a couple or one. Yeah. Thank you, Todd. So I appreciate your comment and clarification on the street section. That's obviously a much more elaborate and expensive street section. So where it ties into Granada Street in the north, what street section, kind of street section is that?
So Granada Street to the north is the typical county asphalt with ditch sections. So we'll have a point where we will have to transition at, rather we capture that a little bit into the existing platted road right away, or we start that transition on our property to get to that typical section, tipping down the curbs and getting to the asphalt section. Currently, the plan is to put storm structures, inlets at the very north end of this proposed street and capture the water that's coming down those streets and getting it into the system that's there, existing system.
I can't read the contours on this, so which way is the natural drainage now?
It runs, as Diane was talking about, there's a diagonal line that cuts through, let's just call it, to keep it simple, the southwest corner of the church property.
Mhm,
And it runs at a diagonal to
mhm.
the south property line. That property all drains to the southeast, eventually south down Mission Road through the ditches along Mission Road. And there's a 48-inch pipe underneath Mission Road that then drains to the east. That water all goes that direction. The rest of it all drains northwest and northerly to a couple sections, low areas on the property, which you can kind of see in the aerials where the grass is in the waterways that the farmers set up to capture runoff and such. That's the low points. But for the most part, let's say 3/4 of it drains north and 1/4 of it drains southeast.
So where you show the inlets and the curb there off a lot, the 12 and 13, and then that flows then to the west and gets discharged at the west line of the lot 12.
Can you get to it up? Oh, there it is. Yeah, if I still zoom out, it'll be easier. So where 13 and 14 are some curb inlets at the end of the street. You can see those. And then if you go south down Granada Street
Mhm.
at the property line of 12, 13 and 14 and 15, there's some more inlets that will tie into an area inlet on the west side of the property line. So all the water that's coming to the area will get picked up by that area inlet and into the system. And then the system runs further south.
Okay,
And then there's another area inlet further south on the west side. And then some of the cul-de-sac, the long cul-de-sac that drains to the north, that'll be picked up in a system, as well as the rear lots of 14 through 24, basically. You can see the ridge line kind of cuts through lot 9, 8, 18, 26, and then down towards the church.
I can read the contour.
Yeah, and then everything else along the street where Delmar Street and 201st Street meet, those will all be picked up, and those will all be draining to the southeast, including an area inlet that'll be up on the north end of the common property lines between 28, 29.
Perfect. Okay. All the question I have. Anybody else?
Ken Klingsman here. What's the project timeline? When do you plan to see this start and when do you see it completed?
Well, I think as soon as we can gain approvals, obviously, we will start the field work and then begin the construction documents. I would assume, based on schedules and timelines, that we would probably be ready to start maybe if the weather cooperates, moving dirt in the middle, late fall. And then depending on the weather, it'd be just installing storm sewer. And then at that point, you're looking in late fall or maybe early winter, and you can't really do a lot of work with pavement and curb at that point. So probably wrapping up in the early spring and then potentially coming online summer of next year.
Ken Smith again. Have you had any informal or formal meetings with the neighborhood to the north?
Payne and Brockway, myself and Mark have not. I'm not 100% sure if Assam and Yasser have any correspondence.
Fred Wigger, Mr. Albrand, I appreciate you being here. Is there a reason that the developer, the landowners aren't here tonight?
Yes, they're both medical doctors. Yasir, I'm not 100% sure, but he might have had an issue with his practice that he couldn't make it. And Hassam, and if they're both on, they can definitely correct me. Hassam is either in Qatar or Turkey. I'm not 100% sure which country he's in right now, but he is attending.
From what I'm seeing on the Zoom, I see the name Yasser. I do not see Hassam.
Yeah, he might have had an issue getting on. I mean, it's 3 o'clock in the morning where he's at, so makes it, well, sometimes difficult.
Yasser is asking to speak.
Okay, well, Yasser.
Hi, this is Yasser Mullah, property owner or co-owner. Actually an overseas trip right now. Sorry, Todd, maybe I didn't explain it well to you. Both Hussam and I are overseas, and it's right now 3 a.m. where I am.
Oh, there. Are you guys both on together?
No, Hussam is, I don't think Hussam is on. I think he has a flight to catch in the morning, so he needed to get some sleep.
This is Kelly Ross. I had a couple questions. So just to clarify, I want to just make sure I heard you right, that you went in with the idea of doing the 2.5 more minimum acreage lot, but it wasn't done mostly because of developmental costs? for
No, it
development?
wasn't done because we
What-
couldn't meet the county ordinances and we couldn't work it out, and negotiate meeting those with the county, the requirements. So the only way we could make it to get to the point was to go to an PRN2. And part of the PRN2 requirement is that you have to put in curb and gutter. So we didn't purposely create more money.
Right, but you could, you could have done that. It'd be more cost for the curb and gutter. And if you did that, then the lots could be bigger. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, the opposite.
No, if we would have been able to do the 2.5 acre lots, we would have had the exact similar typical section that's in the reserve of Town and Country. Asphalt road, no curbs, ditch section.
Okay. Okay, glad I clarified. Thanks. And then another question, what are you expecting like the square footage of the homes to be? Do you know yet, or?
No, I mean,
Wasn't it
typically with
decided?
these size lots, the houses are always custom, so you
You're
never.
not gonna have any minimums, or it's
No.
gonna be wide open?
They haven't discussed minimums,
Okay.
but I'm sure they're gonna, build similar size houses that are out there. I mean, these type of lots really migrate towards larger homes.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Todd? Okay. All right, thanks, Todd. Gonna open up the, now we're gonna go for a public comment section. So we're gonna have, first of all, before we go down that road, do we have anybody on Zoom that's got their hand raised? No. Okay, so that can still change, but for the moment, we have only people that might want to comment from here in the room. So just want to remind everybody, we have 3 minutes to speak, and you need to provide your name and address for the record. And there's quite a few people there. I don't know if you all want to speak on the same thing, but just a reminder that if you have a comment that echoes somebody else's comment, you can expedite the process by just reiterating what a previous speaker might have said. So with that, who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Yep, you got to get up there behind the microphone. Yes, sir.
Recording, okay. My name's Tim Naw. I live at 20135 Mission Road, almost directly across the street to the east of the proposed subdivision. I have an extensive real estate background. The lots to the east are 10 acres. The lots to the south are all 5. One is 40, meant to be a single home. That lady wrote a letter. It's going to continue to be a single residence. The lots to the north, I want to give a little history, and I have some minutes from the homeowners association of the reserve of Town and Country. Would you stand as you're one of the, you said you give me your minutes. Jim Stark lives next to me. He's a Johnson County home builder. He has a 10-acre lot. History of the subdivision to the north is easy to see on here more readily than anything else. These 1-acre lots were done before the 2-acre thing came up. These are much older. The blues are the newer subdivisions, much larger acreages. And these developers must not know anything to go with it. People come out with large lots. 2006, we wanted I got 99 signatures that don't mean anything for 2006, but 99 property owners on that map. Around the north suburbs. Wanted 4.5 acres. And Rod Richardson, who I'm sure you know is an attorney, wrote then. No, yeah. Doesn't mean anything, but it showed everybody out there was strong for 4.5 acres. Okay, we gave densities and all that. In this map, all these are provided by the county. Those are net square footages, net acreages, excuse me. Rod Richardson was the chairman at that time. The problem I have with it, I really don't think this particular zoning district is in character with the neighborhood. Keep in mind, these other ones have been built since. Finally, as Mr. Dahl pointed out, and as we've seen on the maps, and if we had seen most of the surrounding subdivisions that this board and the county commissioners have approved have been of significantly larger acreages. They were trying to get 4.5. And certainly if this particular zoning district were approved, the applicant would be within his right to ask for something down within these low acreage lots. But the truth of the matter is the lots that surround this, the character of the general development of the area has not favored lots this small. So from the golden rule, I really am concerned that this is a major left turn of what's going on here. Certainly, if that turn is made, then all the other left turns are going to indicate that we probably are going to be approving similar sized subdivisions down the line, which she noted earlier. So this is rather important in that what we do here in some respect, although we may take them one at a time, and there is no domino principle that we can apply. But if this is approved, it'll be that much more difficult to approve the others. So I held up the development of the neighborhood to the north for 6 months. Larry Wynn was trying to get it done at 2.5 acres. And finally, Payne and Brockway brought in and showed 3.5 acre lots. And the commission was tired of all the holdup. And they thought, well, we got to do this. So they did it. And then an hour later, we studied what Payne and Brockway did for their client. And they went to the center of the road, which is not net acreages. And so that was kind of foof. So today, that subdivision, Town and Country, that you want to drive into. In fact, I think the realtors are going to drive through there and come in and then look at your lots. It's 2.76, not 2.5 acres, which is their average. Their lowest lot.
Jim, I hate to cut you off, but you're out of time, so you're gonna have to wrap it up.
I said it earlier, I want I get his 3 minutes and the person in charge of the subdivision. Is that okay with you?
I missed
Home
that.
Association. I met with all the home association people, 23.
Okay, continue then.
Okay. Town and Country's lowest net acreage is the lowest of all the acreages out there already. The net average of the reserve of Town and Country is 59% of overall newer subdivisions. It's that low. So the smallest lot there is 2.5 acres and the maximum there is 3.36. So we're talking about density. We want a lot lower density. Monument signage, we didn't see anything on it, so we wanted to mention it. Subdivisions out there have entries that says who they are and they're attractive. White entry with narrow island setback for safety and of ease and ingress for semi trucks, moving trucks. It's not that big a cost to have it widened and narrowed down to 2. That is also in all these subdivisions. Landscaped earth berms. We saw you had it. We'd like to see size, setback, and landscaping conforming with the neighborhood to the north. We see uniformity coming down the street. Utilities are underground. We didn't see it on the plans, but we've read it now. Any new 3-phase electrical lines which come from the north, either be buried or be above ground, be located on the west side of Mission Road, extending from the west reserve of Town and Country's main entrance pole. They brought it across there. You can bring it down past the church and go underground. The natural gas line, just to inform the engineers, you probably don't know it, it was extended just past the entry of the church, so it's already available to that property. That was done by a year ago by Mr. Stark. He paid for it. Watershed, the agricultural field low point is just east of the proposed connection of Granada Street into the reserve of Town and Country and already floods the area. You should have photographs. She's given photographs and those people are here tonight. I think they're going to talk about it. Seasonal heavy rains currently flood their, it's just a great big amphitheater. When you stand and look at it, it's going to come right through their yards. And that's going to be a big problem. I think it's going to need a large retention pond. Retention ponds fill in quickly. So the home association will have to have dues to be able to clean it out every 5 years, but it's going to have to be a big one. There's a huge amphitheater dumping into their neighborhood. Because you're adding roofs, you're adding driveways, you're adding roads, sidewalks. It's going to be unbelievable. I think that's about it. And I'm done. Anybody have any questions? I've written this all up in bullet points. They have them.
All right, thank you, Tim. Anybody else would like to comment? Sorry, but you got to go clear up to the podium and do the whole thing.
Yeah, my name is Rick Bryan. I live at 19970 Delmar Street in Reserve of Town and Country. One of the questions I have, you were originally talking about larger lots and not meeting the county or the requirements, and I didn't understand exactly what was the problem with pursuing those larger lots, the 2.5 minimums. What specifically prevents you from doing that?
Chairman.
Yeah, guys, go ahead. Go.
Yeah, those are
Wait.
the questions. We'll take any of the questions you have and the applicant will have a
They're
chance to
gonna come up at
rebut.
one
I
at one
understand, I
time.
mean, I understand the need to have more lots to cover the cost of sewers and everything, but I still don't understand the need to go to that level and what is preventing us from keeping it consistent with the Reserve of Town and Country as far as lot size and drainage with appropriate retention ponds and that kind of a setup.
Okay, thank you. We're keeping track of those and we'll get the questions all at once. Greg?
Hi, my name's Greg Hadel. I live at 4850 West 207th Street. And I also represent Chris Manowski. He's my neighbor immediately to the east, 4530 West 207th, I believe is his address. Chris is in Idaho right now, so he couldn't be here, but we both expressed interest to the planning department. And I think the developer himself knows that we also want the same opportunity he was provided, and that is have him stub the street to the south so that we can have the opportunity for future development like he has. So he was granted this earlier. I don't know who asked for it, but Granada stubs, instead of coming to a cul-de-sac, stubs to his north. We're asking for the same opportunity. Chris Manowski has the 40 acres immediately to this subdivision south. And I have the 53 acres immediately to his west, southwest. So we want the same opportunity. That's 93 acres, which is larger than his subdivided area. And I agree with the first gentleman's comments. There is not one piece of land that borders this proposed subdivision that has as small a lots. It is not contiguous. It's not harmonious with the surrounding community. I like the idea of subdividing it. I like the idea of having homes, but not that small. And not that small of lot. And all the homes and lots that surround it, they're 5 and 10 acres. Some of them are 40 acres. Some of them are 53 like mine. But if you look to the west, you look to his north, you look to the south, there isn't one lot that has his type of small 2-acre lots or whatever he's proposing. But the bottom line is both Chris and I plan on developing our 93 acres. And so we want the same opportunity he was providing, and that is to have the street stubbed to the south, which would be the north part of our property, so that someday we have the same opportunity he's provided. I think that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions?
This is Ken Klingensmith for clarification. Diane, can we pull up a map just so we can see exactly where he's talking, please? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll move it over.
You'd probably want to zoom out on that map a little bit.
Now, can we get the one from the actual presentation? Yeah, right there. Probably the one right above it, right there. Which, are you looking at the two long properties there?
Yeah, those are the two long properties right below it to his, well, one of them has a pond, that's mine, and the one to the right of it is Chris Manowski. So mine actually butts up to the corner, and Chris goes immediately from the southwest portion. The 40 acres is Chris Manowski. And he also sent an email requesting the same thing.
Thanks for the clarification.
Thanks, Greg.
Other questions?
All right. Thanks, Greg. Who else?
It's Jeremy Strom. I'm at the 19980 on that picture that you said. I'm in the corner lot of
Could you repeat your name? I'm sorry.
Jeremy Strom.
Thank you.
I'm at 199th and Mission Road at the corner. We were the second house into the development years ago when it started to be built. I also am an MD, but still had fine time to be here. So I apologize, but a couple of things from the presentation. I'm not sure why we're categorizing this as a residential or a rural area. We pay residential taxes. I'm not sure why we wouldn't have to keep it as a residential area for the build. I would like to recommend that we have like a minimized or a minimal sized house, just to keep our property values and our houses the same across the board to maintain that low density population would be nice. And then with all respect to Payne and Brockway, we have had freestanding water in every one of our ditches in all 23 houses in Town and Country Reserve, every single one of them. For the last 8 years, I've called the county every year. They haven't been out. And I think she mentioned that they're not planning on doing any water works for another 15 years. I've hired my own engineer. I've hired my own person to drudge the culverts. We still have freestanding water, and I've done it 5 years in a row. The storm drain is there. We don't know where it goes. that water just sits there across the board. It doesn't matter what lot it is. People are doing landscaping and rock sculptures and river quarries and all sorts of stuff down through that covert and that drainage ditch because the water sits and goes nowhere. To the point where it goes over driveways. We've got French drains just to move it past the landscaping and all of our development stuff or what we're putting to grow our properties, and it goes nowhere. So I actually would like waste management to come out and take a look, or water management. I've called them. Like I said, nobody's come out to take a look at all. Year after year, it continues to sit. So I've got a real big concern. The Town and Country Reserve as a whole, I sit on the board there. We've got a major question and concern that all the water that you guys are planning comes straight down and goes into a facility that doesn't move the water in the first place. So much water, just to give you an idea, when one of our houses were built on the far end or the far west side, there was enough water to pick up a Johnny on the spot and move it across the street. I mean, it's that much water. It's ridiculous because it doesn't go anywhere. I can't mow my yard throughout the year. It's been 105 degrees last week. I still can't mow my yard through the ditch with my lawnmower. I've got a 72-inch mower, and it still makes ruts through the ground because it's that wet. And we haven't had rain for a week and a half. So I mean, it's a major issue of which hasn't been addressed. In Payne and Brockway, again, with all respect, they did our planning development in the drainage for Town and Country Reserve, which is the same company that's doing this one.
Fred Winger, Mr. Chairman, could we get the map back up so we can I wanted to ask the speaker so he can point out where we're exactly talking about.
Well, there's not a single house in our Town and Country Reserve that doesn't have water issues as far as freestanding water because it doesn't flow anywhere. It comes across the drive on 201st. Everything from lot, I can take it.
Can you use the pointer? Yeah, thank you.
Yep, sorry. So
Can you zoom in a little, please?
Use that,
Plus sign right in the
Use-
center.
use that upper map. It's bigger.
There you go. Thank you.
So I own lot 4 and 5. It's this corner lot here. Both are 3.3, 3.5. But lots 1, 2, and 3 all drain towards me and they sit right through here. Everything comes across my yard. It covers my driveway and then the water sits all the way through here. We've got issues across the street in the cul-de-sac here. The free water actually sits all the way down the street of 201st and it pools right here where the stop sign is. We've got rock development and just like a river rock bed all the way down Granada Street just to catch the water, and the water still sits there. There's a storm drain. There's a storm drain here, but the water still pools on Aaron Stouffer's house, which is here. There is another storm drain here, but it doesn't drain anywhere. And so all the water comes this way. Oh, and that Johnny on the spot was actually right over here. Yeah. So the water just doesn't move. And so while we're talking about storm drains and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't go anywhere. It just pools, it sits.
Thank you.
Can you repeat your last name? I'm sorry.
Strom?
Strong. Thank you.
Oh.
My name is Deborah Zook. I live at 20035 Granada Street, Stillwell, Kansas. My property is also shown on the maps as lot 17. My biggest concern is with, again, the drainage. There is a storm drain that is on south of lot 16, which is south of me. That is, I think, on the property for Blue Valley Reserve. And it's big enough, the drain is big enough for a person, an adult, to stand up in it. And yet, when it rains, it floods the lot 16 and lot 17. And I have pictures that I would be willing to share with you. We moved in May of 2014, and there is a picture of the first rainstorm in October of 2014. And then the next pictures that I have are from May 28th, 2020, and then again on July 3rd of 2020. And there is, it's not even 100-year rain, and we are getting this kind of water. And then another concern of mine is that will there be a dedicated construction entrance to the development? There are children in our neighborhood that are from, I'd say, 7 years old to down to 2 years old, and they have these little battery operated toys that they operate in the streets. So that would be concerning.
Anybody have any questions from Deborah before she?
Diane, this is Ken Klingensmith. The pictures that she presented you, are those in the packet? Are those pictures in the packet?
I just asked her that. She said not all of them.
Okay.
So but we just handed out were 2 pictures, and then so I guess what she has looks like maybe 3 or 4 more pictures. So, okay.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
We can just pass them down the line here. Okay, who's next? Anybody else to speak?
I've spoken, but when I sat down, I was informed that from the home builder that the developer doesn't have any covenants and restrictions right now. Tim Knoll, 20135 Mission Road. Covenants and restrictions of all those nice neighborhoods are always recorded right after the plat. Some developer, like the one to the west of this subdivision, didn't have any, went with the counties. You can build a barn there and never build a house. You can have a semi parked in the driveway. You can run a puppy mill. All those are legal, the county's minimum. Is this the first development for these doctors? Have they done any other subdivisions? Do they have experience?
Excuse me, any questions that need to be asked to the zoning board, and then the applicant will have a chance for rebuttal?
Yeah.
What's that? Well, if they don't have experience.
The applicant will have an opportunity for a rebuttal following public comments.
Okay. I was told by the subdivision, if they don't have covenants and restrictions, that they would like a monument sign back on Granada going into their subdivision, because they don't want their subdivision identified with this one, even though they connect. If they don't have any, it'll be a bad subdivision. It won't hold us, houses won't appreciate as well as one that has good covenants and restrictions. That's all I got to say.
All right,
Fact.
thanks, Tim. All right. Any other comments?
Good evening, Rob Schwartz, 20024 Delmar Street. Gosh, I forgot about all the water issues that we've had. I know the Zooks and we've had doctors landscaping come out and work on our ditches. We've even had issues with our septics having water running over them and the alarms going off in the evening. So there's lots of water issues there. what I wanted to bring to your attention, my comments are in your packet. So with my company, I'm a planner. We used to work for Johnson County Planning like 30 years ago. I had my planning intern draw up some ideas of how you can connect some of these roads, stub it to the south. And I think I heard someone here tonight say they would like to have that opportunity. If you go back and review those two subdivisions, mine, Reserve of Town and Country, and Mulberry Estates to the west, to the west, you'll see probably some notes on why they stubbed those streets and how this connectivity should occur with the roads. And when you start to get into things with the cow race and how we have to show IDs to get into our property because we only have one access out onto Mission Road, if you start to get the connectivity as was planned by the planners back in 2004 and 2005 with these plats, we'd have more opportunities. I've listed off all of my things in my email, but I just wanted to bring also another thing that is a starting point. So what you received for this, as Kelly indicated, this is the starting point. This is like the minimum. And when you look at the roads that are to the north and those that are to the west, the curved linear nature of those roads, instead of having this straight road that then ties into Granada, we already have people at speed on our roads and they are curvilinear. If you had more curvilinear nature to those roads, there would be better speed access. With the connectivity, you would allow the walkers and the kids that are in our subdivision to interact better instead of having to go out onto 199th Street or Mission Road, or as you guys know, they're proposing some sort of highway, I guess, on 199th Street with all these trucks. We probably don't want to have that interaction with people that are in our subdivisions. Really, in closing, I'd like to see the original plan. What is the original plan? Because that seems like something that would fit more what I know my neighbors, we would be talking about seeing as a better plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Kay Slazak and I live at 4893 West 201st Street. I am directly west of the proposed development. I'm across or right next to the tree line. So I actually don't really have an opinion on the lot size. I know you're all going to hate me for that, but I don't think it's a bad plan. I think it's a good use of space for what they did. And I do appreciate the tree preservation. Anybody that lives next to them, next to the proposal, I think would appreciate that. I do appreciate the privacy factor and the habitat factor, as we do often see animals pop in and out of the tree line that when we're sitting in our looking out the backyard. I will address the previous speakers talk about the plan, and I know that in his email he talked about connecting up to 201st Street in Mulberry Estates, which is where I live. And with 23 lots in Town and Country and 30 proposed lots, I know exactly where they would all go through because it's a little shortcut to 199th Street for most of those houses. So I would propose, I hope that the Planning Commission doesn't ruin my neighborhood in the sake of development. Do you all see where I'm talking about? So my lot, or my Mulberry Estates, has 5 homes right now, residences, and it's very quiet, very safe. I know they were talking about walking and biking. Well, if that is gone through, if that road goes through my neighborhood, it will be no more walking and no more riding bikes at all in that neighborhood. Because I know if I lived in the other 2 neighborhoods, I would take that shortcut myself. So they've been going out onto Mission for at least 10 years. I've lived there and everything has seemed to be okay. So I know you're all probably not happy to hear that, but bear with me. It really, they don't need to have the roads connected. I don't know what the previous plan was. I know that the Overland Park did send an email and they did they talked about connectivity and they said they felt the overall connectivity was important, but I didn't really see anything as to why, why that would help anything. It seems like the reserve in town and country would go their way and the 30 lots would go their way out to Mission. And that's just the residential neighborhoods, the 23 lots and 30. So you're talking 53 houses. So just consider that. That's all I have.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is kind of good.
Yeah.
You're in Mulberry Estates.
Yes.
If I'm reading this correctly, this isn't connecting to the Mulberry.
No, not according to the plan that they have submitted, which I'm fine with that. I'm actually probably the only one here that is fine with that. Because it really is a shortcut for and if I lived in your neighborhood, I would take that shortcut.
Okay,
would.
thank you. I just want to get clarification.
So I mean, I know,
Okay.
unless I lived at the
Sorry, it's trying to find the map. Yeah, okay.
So I know that there were comments from the public and I'm rebutting their comments and hopefully.
This is Kelly Ross. Are you talking about when they're wanting to stub?
Yeah, they're
cul-de-sac
wanting,
off of Granada?
well, right now they're
Granada
stubbing
to
it
201?
to reserve in town and country. I want it to stay like that.
Well, if that.
I don't want them to stub it through to Mulberry Estates, because I know that some people did suggest that. And I don't know what that would help. It might help the other neighborhoods take a shortcut to 199th. And they were talking about running with the cows, and that's a one day, few hours things that they get cut off of getting out of their neighborhood, reserve in town and country on Mission. And obviously they would go through my neighborhood and we have 5 houses, it's very quiet, and it would make a traffic mess through my neighborhood, through
This is-
Mulberry Estates.
Excuse me, this is Sean Penley, planning staff. I think what she's indicating is the proposed connection is fine to the
Yes,
north.
it's
What she's
fine.
saying is that although there's been requests for
Mhm.
additional connections to the west to an existing street stub, she's just indicating she would not support that
Yes,
connection to
yes.
200. Yeah.
I
was just looking
support
at
the
that
plan
goes
as
south.
as the plan is drawn, I support the plan. I just noticed that in the public comments, people were wanting it to be stubbed through, and I do not support that.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Anthony Guile. Address is 19975 Delmar Street, and I'm in the Reserve of Town and Country. Wanted to quickly address and bring up again, not to continuously piggyback on it, but the drainage issue has been extremely massive and a huge, huge problem in the continuation of building and working in the yards and anything within our development. I am one of the houses with the floating porta potty that was across my house and my drive and my street and everything else that was fun to pick up to try and mow around and things like that. But not to mention to address I know we discussed minimums. That was a big piece there. I think it's important to have, set requirements just like we do, especially being on the fact that we're going to connect to our neighborhood, just to impose that same similarity of size, value, to continue that growth and really preserve, that the money and time spent there. So not to have much continuation of time. And again, I don't mean to reiterate too much, but I just think it's heavily noted that we really need some help there as far as the drainage and what issues we deal with now. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else to speak? Okay, so I think first we'll go and we're going to let the engineer respond to the questions and comments, and then we'll go back for one more round of questions if you guys are good with that.
Oh, we do, just now, someone raised their hand.
On Zoom?
I'm assuming that means they want to speak. That's what our instructions state.
Okay.
Well, and now their hand is lowered.
Might have been a false click.
False alarm.
Okay.
Oh, It's raised again. So
Okay,
would you like me to unmute them?
yes. Okay, can you hear us? Public commenter, we need your name and address.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hey, this is Karen and John Mills. We're at 20075 Granada Street, lot 16 in Reserve in Town and Country. I agree with everything that all the previous speakers mentioned. What I would ask the Planning Commission to do, or the developers to make sure that they do, is come out and physically tour our subdivision. We are essentially a bowl. And I think Dr. Strom had mentioned this. So all the water from the farm field that's in question today to be developed literally rolls right through our property and the Zook's property. Debbie Zook spoke, and the Zooks probably get the worst of it, but we submitted photos that would probably be the appendix to the information that you have today, as well as a video. And last year, I think it was, we probably got about 4 inches of rain in the 2-hour time period, and our entire backyard was flooded. And there are various drains that it's just the natural topography. So what I'm trying to, really emphasize here, and I think what my other neighbors have emphasized, is that we've got water issues today in the subdivision. I don't think we are opposed at all to the development of the new homes. We welcome that. I mean, from my perspective, the farm field is dirty. We get a lot of dirt from that today. So welcoming new homes is great. I do believe that we need to make sure that there is a minimum square footage on the homes, that there's an HOA. Everything needs to be, I think, contiguous to what we have today at the Reserve of Town and Country. There are subdivisions out here in Stillwell, in the country, that are beautiful homes, but they don't have HOAs. So if you're going to connect to our subdivision, it would be great that we recognize that we have an HOA here, and we have stipulations and declarations to maintain the property values of our homes. Thank you, and greatly appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Okay. Any other Zoomers raising their hands? All right. Okay, Todd, you guys want to come up and speak again?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Huggins. I'm with Payne and Brockway, 426 South Kansas. I would like to try and respond to some of the comments that have been made, but I think I'd like to talk about an overview of Reserve of Town and Country and Blue Valley Reserves, and the what I hear or understand as the major issue is drainage. I understand that lot sizes are a concern, house values are a concern, but these lots are going to cost as much as the average house does in Olathe. In my opinion, that settles the issue of house value, because you're going to spend $300,000 on a lot and build a $100,000 house on it. It wouldn't make any sense. And I don't know how the county regulates something of that nature. I don't know if there's any mechanism that can do that. And honestly, most cities don't. Some cities establish some criteria for housing, but as I'm not and Sean probably knows a lot better than I do, but I don't think anybody says, if you want to build a subdivision out here, these houses are going to cost this much. Our developer, and I think staff agrees, feels that these lot sizes are appropriate, and we'll just wait for your decision on that. But as far as drainage goes, there's 42, almost 43 acres draining towards reserve of town and country from the south. That was considered when reserve of town and country was designed. Staffs reviewed that, and I believes, in concurrence with that. When it was designed for a development of third acre lots. Not because that was realistic at the time, but just because that's kind of a safe way to do it. Possible, it could be possible. Sewers, before that land developed, sewers could have been down there, and if there were sewers down there, you would have been getting third acre lots brought in. Not that you have to approve it, but that's what people would have been bringing. And so that would have been about 126 lots down there, 126 houses that would have been constructed in that watershed that drains towards reserves of town and country. I bring this up just to point out that the pipes that are in reserves of town and country are designed for that. Now, we're going to have about 16 houses down there, is what we're proposing. Now, reserves of town and country was designed as rural style roadways. So there's very minimal storm sewer in reserves of town and country. That's the design standard. There are ditches on the road. Now, those lots, when we design a subdivision like that, those lots aren't graded because we don't know what's going to go in there. The ditches are free flowing because there are no pipes in there. It's just open ditch. Now, when somebody comes in to build a house, they design the lots. Now, that's not the guys that do the subdivision, that's the guys that do the houses. And they put in the culverts in the ditch. So if those culverts in the ditch are a problem, or a lot doesn't drain, that's something that's done by the builder. Or, his grading guy. So, I'd like to, I guess that's a little self-defense there to all the comments. The next item is we've got 42.5 acres draining down there. And the pipes are sized for that 42.5 acres. But the problem is there's only 3 spots where that 42.9 acres can get into the pipe. And so that's part of the issue for why most storms probably roll down through the backyards. Now, when we do Blue Valley Reserve, we'll be putting in a storm sewer system, which with individual catchments or inlets that will allow the water to get into the storm sewer pipe. And that pipe will be sized for our development. And, nobody has to take my word for it. It's all going to go through the Public Works Department, and they're going to review it, and they're going to ensure that that's the case. That's the county standard. So, it's a different standard that we're building to with the curb and gutter streets. And I think one of the questions earlier was about the transition. The transition from reserves of Blue Valley from Blue Valley Reserve to Reserve of Town and Country will be very similar to the transition we'll have out on Mission Road. And that any curb and gutter street has onto a gutter style roadway. There's a lot of subdivisions out there that tie into gutter style streets. And I'd I've kind of made some notes on the questions, and if you'll allow me, I'll kind of go through these and try and address or try and like I say, I'm not going to try and address lot size. That's it's a matter of opinion, and our clients have the opinion that this would be appropriate. This is what they'd like to do, and that's what we're asking you for. I believe I would defer to the staff about covenants and restrictions. I have not asked our developer if he's going to have HOA. Have you asked him, Todd? Okay, so it's typical, it's normal, and most jurisdictions require it. In working with staff, there was a question about stubbing the street to the staff south. We worked with staff and felt like the plan we came up with was an appropriate plan for the site. Of course, most of the questions were about. There was one question about a construction entrance. We will have a construction entrance there. There will have to be a MPDES permit and a SWIP associated with this project, and the criterias for those include a stabilized construction entrance, which will basically be 2-inch rock, about 10, 15 feet wide and about 20 feet long, to try and knock the rock off the tires. There was another question about construction traffic and making sure that doesn't come through reserves of town and country. That's very hard to legislate. And a guy can put up a sign, but the problem is, making people do it. I think it probably doesn't make anybody feel any better, but I imagine a guy in a dump truck's going to want to come in off Mission Road rather than drive through the subdivision of reserves of town and country. Let's see. We certainly do plan to visit the site. We have visited the site, and we will do more work, doing field work out there, and we certainly would like to work with the residents out there. There very well be some solutions that we come up with that might not only help once we get the water to meet the requirements or get the water from the 10-year storm in the pipes, but to help with some overflow issues and things of that nature, which probably are beyond the requirements. But we certainly will try and do everything we can to help any issues we can. And with that, I'd be willing to answer any questions if the board has any.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody, any more questions for Payne and Brockway?
Fred Winger, the size of the lots, are these net? Are these, like, did we take out the street when we figured the lot sizes for this?
Well, this is a preliminary plat, you gotta understand. So, but these are the lot areas we have listed are net.
They're net, okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, the developers, what has been their experience in other places? Are they
I
developed- is there an
haven't
example?
discussed their experience with them at all. To be honest with
Have they developed other developments?
I didn't ask him. I haven't asked him anything about that.
Would Mr. Allenbrand know?
The ones on
Sure.
the ones on Zoom too.
Yeah, Mr. Yasser's on the line.
Have the developers developed any other developments like this?
Todd Allenbrand, Payne and Brockway. As far as I know, they haven't, but I haven't got into the specifics with them regarding the development. And one thing I wanted to point out that Mark had mentioned, that I don't know if you're aware of it, but the curb and gutter street we're constructing is 28 feet wide. back to curb, back a curb, back a curb. And the section we're going into the asphalt is 24 feet wide. So I mean, I think there was a comment about trucks driving through there and being able to get through there. Really, this is a typical residential road you see in city, in municipalities. Olathe, Overland Park, Lenexa. This is going to look similar to that. And I think that's really about it. And one thing Mark also pointed out was the price of the lots. You know, they haven't specifically been discussed, but I think if there are builders in this audience, I think they'll understand that typically, at least it used to be a couple of years back, or probably not anymore. But if you buy a lot, your house, the value of the lot and the house is typically 5 times what you pay for the lot. So, you know, essentially, not saying this is what would happen, but if they're selling the lots for $200,000, you know, you're looking at $800,000 to $1 million homes getting built on these sites, which I mean, I'm sure that's what they'll be like. And then the other thing is the HOAs. This is a preliminary plat. So HOAs documents and setup aren't a requirement typically with preliminary plats. They are, some jurisdictions, as Mark mentioned, are required at the time of final platting. I'm not sure if the county has adopted a requirement like a lot of the municipalities have, but we have briefly discussed an HOA mainly because they've got some landscape easements along Mission Road and at least a monument sign along Mission Road that's going to have to be maintained by the home associate, the homeowners on a whole. So I'm sure they'll set some covenants and restrictions on, you know, lot sizes and maybe materials, things like that. I mean, what you would.
So one more question. I was confused, and maybe other people on the board were earlier. Can you explain again why the lots couldn't have been larger? Because you kind of lost me there when you were explaining.
So when the county has the zoning similar to Reserve of Town and Country, PRLD, which is, I mean, obviously you understand it's planned residential low density. What that means, I'm going to kind of work backwards if this will help out a little bit. What that means is at the end of the day, that the property owners own no less than 2.5 acres net. Could be more, it can't be less, but that 2.5 acres has to equal a nominal 3 acres, which means you count half of the right of way adjacent to your lot, which hopefully everybody understands. The only thing you can use the right of way for is to drive through to access your property. You can't construct in it. You're not supposed to build things in it. That causes issues with utilities and public works. So the lot acres are, you know, nominal 3 acres, but they're not usable 3 acres. They're a minimum of usable 2.5 acres. So
Right, but right now the property is RUR, correct? So you're
correct. It's
okay, but you're requesting this, so it's, I guess, a little confusing the board. You're requesting this zoning, and then you're saying that we're limited by the zoning, but you're limited by the zoning you're requesting, correct?
Well, we wanted PRLD, but based on the ordinances and requirements, we couldn't meet the nominal 3 acres, which typically is around a cul-de-sac lot. If you have 2.5 acre net lot on a cul-de-sac, it's impossible to meet a nominal 3 acres.
If you took out less lots, you could meet that, correct?
If we took out less lots.
If you took out lots, had less lots, you could meet that.
No, well, on the cul-de-sacs, we couldn't meet it. And the county doesn't have a mechanism to meet that. The county's ordinance won't allow for lots on a cul-de-sac zoned PRLD because you cannot meet the nominal 3 acres. Reserve of Town and Country was, you know, I don't know the exact history with it because I wasn't involved with that development at the time, but those were accepted. They were allowed to have the lots on the PRLD in the cul-de-sacs. And the reason was, one of the main reasons, and I'm sure the county can speak on this better than I can. Currently, there's a tract that's platted adjacent to 199th Street, I believe it's 70-foot wide tract. That tract was dedicated for future thoroughfare, which based on the county's standards for a thoroughfare would eventually be a 6-lane highway. It might not necessarily, you know, ultimately built out could be 6 lanes. So part of, and again, the county might be able to speak on this, or maybe Mark can speak on this. I think part of the negotiations with the county for this subdivision was because they had to give up 90-foot or 70-foot by a half a mile stretch of property, basically half a mile, they were allowed to have some concessions for the nominal, meaning the nominal lot.
They're still
But,
meeting
but that is
2.5.
any property you rezone in Johnson County or most counties in the state, you're gonna have to give up when you rezone a property this size, you're gonna have to give up frontage for roads. That's very
Well,
common, correct?
That frontage, that's not dedicated road right of way today. It was reserved for a future road
Right.
right of way. They dedicated, Reserve and Town and Country dedicated the required half-street road right of way when it was platted. But part of the requirement was they had to hold back, reserve, plat a track for future road right of way, which is not common in any developments. That's an anomaly essentially.
Thank you.
More questions?
I have no questions, of the applicant.
What, I had a question for Mr. Huggins back about, so since you guys did the reserves of Town and Country, did you have to go through Public Works and stuff for all the drainage and all of that? Okay, so you guys did all the right things and the neighborhood is still having flooding, but you're saying that's mostly attributed to the way the builders built on the lots?
Well, yeah, the person has water standing in the yard. If the yard won't drain, then it's not properly graded. Now, getting water.
But sometimes the water comes from another area onto your property. You'd have to trace it all the way back. I mean, even my property, we have it that comes and winds down and ends up flooding in between our neighbors. So, I mean, I guess what I'm concerned about is adding insult to injury, because it sounds like you guys went through Public Works and did all the right things for drainage and all that, you know, assuming that when everything was done, there wouldn't be drainage problems, but you are, you know, saying that the builders could be accounting for this. Well, I'd hate for this new neighborhood now that, and I, you know, it's hard to say whether it's the builders or what, but we add even more insult to injury. So, because just by going through Public Works is not protecting, obviously not the full key. And that's what you were saying, you were going to be going through and doing all the right channels, which is great. And that's what you did before, but there's still significant water issues. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. Is that correct?
I think we're talking about two different things. One is, do you have water running through your yard? Okay. And there's a second item is, does the water that comes to your yard drain?
Mhm.
Okay, if the water that comes to your yard doesn't drain, doesn't go anywhere, then it stays in your yard and it keeps it wet. So that's a lot grading issue. Yeah, well, yeah, it's a.
Mhm. I think it can be a little both sometimes, just because you
be.
can have water that's constantly draining to that area and then it stands and you have, and it's more constantly.
Yeah.
That, you know, you can't really say one without the other. They could be both. They could be, you know, for the most part, because the water's gotta, if it's there for a very long time, the water is still draining to that point and then sitting there. That's kind of what we were told when we had an engineer come out to our house. So I'm kind of reflecting back on that situation, or else at some point it would dry up on 105-degree weather for weeks on weeks. The water does seep or flow to those areas. But you're right, it could also just ultimately get there and stay there too. So.
I think there's a lot of specifics in each situation that.
Oh, sure,
we
lots of
can't really
variables.
address here,
Mhm.
but I'm just talking in general.
Okay.
This subdivision is a rural style roadway section. And so there's very little storm sewer in the subdivision. Not like you will find in Blue Valley Reserve, because it's got curb and gutter. The standards require us to keep that water out of the street so that cars can get through. And so we have to put in enough storm sewer in this subdivision to collect that water before it ever comes close to ponding in the street. And so that just creates a situation where we've got a lot more pipe. Now, I guess the point I was trying to make earlier, and maybe I wasn't very clear, the pipes in reserves of town and country are big enough to carry all the flow that's coming at it. It just can't get in the pipe because there aren't enough inlets. That is something that building Blue Valley Reserve storm sewer system will provide. That 42.9 acres won't be running to the property line anymore over land. It'll be being captured through all the points through Blue Valley Reserve, put into the pipe and carried through the pipe downstream. Now, as far as the ditches in the street, that's the way that subdivision is designed. I mean, I understand people might not like water running through the ditches in their street, but that's the basis of building a street like that.
More questions? The applicant?
Thank you.
Dennis, have any?
You've already spoken. So, if we have any other people who would like to comment, no other Zoomers, and ask questions of the applicant. And I think it's time to close the public comments. And so we're going to close the public comments. And so we can discuss now amongst ourselves.
You ask questions of staff?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah, we can ask. Yeah, if you question this, yeah, I've got a couple questions of staff.
Kelly asked, for staff, what is the rules or regulations regarding having the CCRs done and at what time and that kind of stuff? Regarding plats and stuff and.
This is Sean Penley, planning staff. I may want to have Diane correct me if I'm wrong, but the developer, the subdivision, they're not required to form a homeowners association, but if they do.
Not the homeowners, but the CCNRs.
Yeah. So as part of that, as part of a homeowners association, you may have covenants and restrictions.
Yeah, we have that, but we don't have a homeowners association. So
Okay,
I thought.
or or a developer may choose to form CCRs as part of a subdivision without an HOA.
Mhm.
That is the developer's prerogative. It's not a requirement.
Okay.
But if they do have CCRs, that would need to be dedicated with the final plat. So I don't know if Diane has any other updates, but that's as far as I know.
And is that common to offer a development of this type and not offer any type of CCNRs or even homeowners or anything? Or do normally they come with that?
I think like Sean said, this is Diane Wicklund. The county does not require deeds and restrictions and or homeowners associations. So, I think it's just something by choice. Maybe in the cities, those are required and maybe more common, but yeah. And I just also wanted to, so I think there was one new person on Zoom that wanted to speak. So I just wanted to let you know that. I wasn't sure if you were clear or if you wanted to take that comment. So.
Well, the only person I see that still has their hand raised is this Karen and John Mills.
Well, that's just one view that you see.
Oh.
I see the participants'
the-
view.
Did,
I was under the impression that public comment was closed, so I tried to communicate that
Yeah.
in the chat.
we closed it. So comments are closed. Okay. So do you have your question answered sufficiently, Kelly, about the covenants and restrictions?
Ken Klingensmith, can staff comment on what county ordinances could not be met to allow this to stay a PLRD?
I'll try. Sean Penley, planning staff. So as the applicant indicated, that is correct. First, the application was originally submitted as a PRLD zoning with the lots. I believe there's only 25 total lots. There were fewer lots under that proposed zone. As the applicant indicated, they did change that as a result of the requirements for the nominal lot area. It does get confusing, but basically, as it was proposed, they could not meet the nominal 3 acres with some of the cul-de-sacs. As I think Mr. Allen indicated, some of those lots that were in the cul-de-sacs, it couldn't meet the nominal 3 acres because with cul-de-sacs, you have a smaller right of way. There are some lots, I believe, in the reserve of town and country to the north that are below the nominal 3 acres. So there was an exception allowed for some of those lots, but the majority do all meet the minimum 2.5 acres. The applicant had requested a similar type of exception. Staff had indicated in our first comments back to the applicant that staff would not support that for this subdivision. We said we would require a minimum 2.5 acres. As I think the applicant also indicated, the reason why I think an exception was granted for that existing subdivision to the north was because they did dedicate additional right-of-way for the arterial streets. In this phase, they won't have as much frontage on an arterial street. Therefore, they can't be dedicated additional right-of-way arterial. So those are some of the issues with why it's a little bit different here. But as we indicated, staff wouldn't support less than 2.5 acres. So the applicant, as an alternative then, requested a PRN2 zoning to allow for additional lots, but with the requirement that they would build the streets to the residential standard with curb and gutter. That requires as additional costs, additional design standards, bigger streets. And that to offset those costs, the applicant requested additional lots. And under the PR2 zoning, PRN2 zoning, they do meet those minimum lot sizes based on the proposed PRN2 zoning. So some meet or exceed that requirement. Staff felt that we could support that zoning, given the larger surrounding area, that there are some lots with that similar type of density. So staff supported that zoning as proposed.
Kelly, that's clarification. So they came in and you said, no, you have to have 2.5 acre lots. That was your priority. When they couldn't meet that, you basically traded for the streets and then decided 2 acre lots were okay. So why did staff change that they're accepting lots less than 2.5 acres now? Like,
Sean Penley, plan staff, I'll start and see if Diane maybe can elaborate. The reason why we changed that because we didn't support the exception that they were asking for under the PRLD zoning. It has to meet that minimum requirement. We were not going to support another exception under that zoning. But the PRN2, the offset is staff felt comfortable with the PRN2 zoning and a minimum lot size of 2 acres because overall we felt that still met the intent of this area. The densities of 2 acre lots we do feel is consistent with the overall area. It is a slightly higher density, yes, than some of the surrounding subdivisions. However, overall, we felt that it's still in character with the density. That's still a low density zoning.
Thank you. Second question. When we look at the stormwater and they do the final stormwater management plan, does the public works take into consideration then holding ponds to help? And would they take in consideration the issues that we have in Town and Country?
This is Sean Penley, planning staff. I believe we have Martin Donjura with Public Works Department on Zoom. I'd like to refer that question to Martin.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Name says Martin and Donjura, Johnson County Public Works project engineer. So just to clarify, with this particular proposed development, we accepted the preliminary storm drainage study with a stipulation that the final plat would have to be accepted with the acceptance of the final storm drainage study. So the study that we have and we reviewed doesn't address all the issues because the applicant said they needed more time to get into specifics of the design. So we are basically waiting for the final study to review and some of the questions that have been raised by some of the residents of Town and Country, some of the areas that we are looking to address.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Those are my questions. Go ahead.
Diane, Sean, I noticed when Town and Country was developed, you you allowed access to the, property to the south, right? And in this development, we're cutting off access to the property to the south. We have an issue with cul-de-sacs that, it sounds like cul-de-sacs were a major issue here. We could eliminate one cul-de-sac by that road being connected to the, the property to the south that was spoken about earlier. There were two landowners there so can you help me understand why we wouldn't have offered the same or requested the same thing?
Sure, I'll start and see if Diane wants to add anything additional. Sean Penley, Planning. So the reason why staff is not recommending an additional street connection to the south is the properties to the south are developed. There are existing residential uses and dwellings on those parcels to the south. They're not platted, but they are developed with existing homes. The reason why street stubs were proposed to this subject property is it has been undeveloped. And so obviously it made sense that this was intended for future subdivision. This property would be with the intent to provide additional street connections. Could there be additional street connections to the south? Sure, that's possible, but the applicant has no plans to continue their development. And we were not aware of any plans for subdivision to the south. I know that the property owners have indicated that now, but there's nothing that's been approved or proposed or anything submitted to staff for review for a subdivision. So that's why we didn't recommend a connection. Certainly, it does, again, it's possible it could be provided, but since we don't have anything before us that's pending, we didn't require any connection to the south.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? So board discussion, I guess I would say a couple of things. Ken kind of went where you went first. Why was this not PRLD? I understand the issue, and it's created by the PRLD regulations and the geometry of the tract. And I would also say on the regarding the drainage. I mean, if you have a drainage issue, the best way to handle it is with streets and curbs and gutters. I mean, that's not an opinion, that's a fact. So I would like to have seen it a little less dense. But I think to manage the water, I like the curbs and gutters and the better streets. So.
My concern on the curbs and gutters, though, is it's not contiguous with the neighborhood right to the north. And it's kind of creating almost two neighborhoods that are very different in style. Because you've got asphalt and then we're going to curbs and gutters, smaller lots versus the bigger lots. It just seems from a continuous perspective that, I don't know, I kind of feel, this is Ken Smith. I kind of still feel the PLRD or the 2.5, 3 acre component. I just seems like that, that should be able to work in that property somehow.
I agree. This is Kelly Rast. And also, especially if they're going to cut it off and absolutely not consider stubbing to go further south. And there's lots of people that have a house on large acreage that they ultimately sell to be developed. So if one hand, we're always looking at contiguous stuff and, the growth and stuff, I feel like we're answering one question with this scenario, but then another question we're going, oh, we're not going to do that. Like, to me, I'd rather have 2.5 acre lots and give them the waiver. But if we get rid of one of the cul-de-sacs, we might be able to and consider stubbing south for more continuation. Then, yeah, because basically if you set the precedent of 2 acre lots, that's basically what people are going to, that's what's going to start happening. And being a Stillwellian myself, people knock on our door all the time. And yes, 3 to 5 acres is what people want, traditionally. And I'd like to see it stay more in that fashion. So I think that I think there was a lot of good stuff that was brought up tonight. It seems like there's a lot of both sides are willing to work on different things to maybe meet in the middle. It seems like there might be a lot of things that can still be worked out or better, just fine tune things and get things a little better. But yeah, I would have gone for the larger lots and see if we can figure that out. There's got to be a way to figure it out. maybe a small waiver here or consider stubbing that road.
This is Ken again. I also think the 2 acre lots that you kind of see in the area over where Stowell Crossing is, and those are the older areas. And so all of the newer land that's being developed and being in subdivisions are all that 8 acres, the 9 acres, the 5 acres, the 3.5 acres. So the current land that's not essentially grandfathered because they had 2 acres to start with, all the new developments are staying in that larger land component. And I think when you look at that, I think that's why I would go with a less restricted I wouldn't go from RUR all the way down to a PRN2. I think the PRLD is kind of the right step to go with how we're developing new ground.
Mr. Chairman, Fred Wingert, I would agree with that. The comments of my colleagues, and, you know, we're talking about 90 acres to the south. That's much larger. There are 2 landowners there that would like access. And, you know, I think the new plan should include stubbing to the south, just like the one to the north was. And I would prefer the larger lots as well. And I am, just for the record, very concerned that neither of the developers are here tonight. They're the ones that the residents, that our board, the staff is going to deal with. And I've expressed this concern many times, that we have applicants come that don't own the property and they're represented, you know, by lawyers or engineers. No offense to the folks that are here, but, you know, the people doing the work should be here. And they postponed this last time, I believe. Right.
Yeah,
So
they
you know,
asked for a continuance.
They asked
but I
for
don't-
continuance, so they've known for a long time. When the fact that they're not here, you know, my opinion, to hear the concerns of neighbors, you know, I've got concerns about that as well, but those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Dennis?
I'm sorry.
Dennis?
Yeah, well, I don't see him on there. Dennis?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just not up on my screen. You got any comments, questions?
Yeah, I think we need to have staff do some more communications with like surrounding neighbors. I can go back 20 years in my case. Staff doesn't communicate well with sometimes the neighbors like they should. In my case, I can remember when we went to divide my land, instead of contacting me or the neighbors, they just forgot about me, was going to deny the division because there wasn't access points. And so the neighbor to the south here on this property, he wants a connection. Well, if staff was doing their job like they should, I think they should have contacted some of the neighbors to the south and west and other places to see if there was possibilities of connections. And so all these places weren't landlocked, because it creates some difficulties later on down the road if they're landlocked. And also, you know, I have some difficulties with flooding. This county got in situations with flooding several years ago and had to buy some properties out. So I'm still concerned about water possibilities. So I know Mark Huggins had said something about they had good drainage planned. So I hope he's got it planned right. And, you know, I've dealt with Mark before on the planning commission, so I think he's got a good grip on things, but I hope he's got this planned out right. So that's my comments, and I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. So I think we've discussed, I think we've asked all the questions, so I think we either need a motion to deny or to recommend.
I do support the waiver for the minimum infrastructure for the dry sewers. So, for the record, but this is Ken. I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion to deny the rezoning for application number SE 22-211 REZ and SE 22-212 PDP AU. And also denial of the preliminary development plan.
Mr. Chairman. if,
For the
Motion, yeah, if you have any reasons for motion.
For the reasons that I believe the zoning is too aggressive and not consistent with the neighbors to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west of the property. And needs to be more consistent with how new land is being developed in this area.
Okay,
Kelly Rast, I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Boyd,
And just to be clear, a yes vote would be to deny. Right?
Correct.
Okay, I vote yes.
Kelly Rast,
I vote no.
No, yes.
Like, yes, wait, I'm sorry, I was
You're
reading.
voting to deny.
I'm voting to deny, yes.
Ken Klingensmith,
Yes.
Fred Winger,
Yes.
Dennis Boland on Zoom.
Dennis is muted.
He's on mute.
I vote.
Dennis, try again.
Or did he vote?
Do it one more time, Dennis. You got back on mute there. We can't hear you.
Try it again, Dennis.
There you go.
Okay, I vote yes to deny it.
Thank you.
And Emily Coleman. No.
Okay. Looks like the motion to deny has passed. So the next step for that then,
Yes, you see.
This Diane Wickland, so that recommendation will go to the Board of County Commissioners on August 11th at 9:30 a.m. And that'll be the Board of County Commissioner meeting, and that'll be here in this room. So and they do take public comments. So
okay,
August 11th at 9:30 a.m.
okay.
Am I allowed to ask one question to staff that's kind of administrative, maybe?
Let's wait till the end of the
Okay.
meeting. Other business. Okay. Gonna move on with application B. Application number SE 22223 rezoning. Northeast corner of 175th and Kenneth Road, and application number SE 22224 PDP preliminary development plan. LLJ3 Pandy LLC and Dale Brouk, application and landowner. There's the applicant and the landowner here before we get going. Okay, good. All right. Staff, Diane?
So Diane Wickland, Johnson County Planning Department. I would like to enter in the staff report that is dated June 29th, 2022, enter that into the record. Also would like to enter into the record an email letter that I received on the application, but it came after the zoning board packet went out. And you also received a copy of that handout at your desk earlier. So that letter is from Philip Brandt. And he was writing on behalf of Mary Thesis at 17160 South Stonehaven Road. I'm not going to read the whole email, but just saying that they wouldn't be able to attend the meeting tonight. Several concerns. First, most important is security. So talking about the gated community and don't want any breaches with security. So asking where the entrances will be. Also asking about setbacks, and then talking about construction noise and disturbance to the neighborhood if the subdivision was approved, and destruction of green spaces with the construction. So that's just kind of a synopsis of that, but you do have that on your desk. So so with that, so this property is located at the northeast corner of 175th Street and Kenneth Road. The property has rural zoning, and it also has six small accessory structures or outbuildings on the property right now. So the applicant proposes to rezone this 62 acres from the RUR Rural Zoning District to the Planned Residential Neighborhood 2 District, the PRN2 zoning, and a preliminary plat or development plan in that plat for the purpose of creating a 23 lot residential subdivision to be known as Loch Lloyd Estates Blue Valley. The lots shown on the preliminary plat range in size from 2 to 3.05 acres and are all shown with direct access onto new local streets, cul-de-sacs that are proposed to connect to an existing street, Wallace Way in the Loch Lloyd development on the Missouri side of the state line. Wallace Way would then connects to Kenneth Road on the Kansas side at 167th Street. And that's through the Stonehaven at Loch Lloyd subdivision. To the north, that's on the Kansas side. That's a 6 lot plat. This board probably remembers approving that application last year. There's no proposed direct access to 175th Street or Kenneth Road, but rather the plat is showing an emergency access point via a gate that's shown off of 175th Street. And that does meet the fire code access requirements. The subdivision will be a private gated community and connects internally to the existing Loch Lloyd development, again on the Missouri side. The tract A shown on the plats for open space area, and tracks B and C are for stormwater detention ponds. So kind of go through a couple of the pictures here. So this aerial view shows the subject property outlined in blue. You can see the state line there, Overland Park. The land here to the west is within Overland Park city limits. There's county land to the north. And then again, property that's within Overland Park to the south. This aerial view just shows the adjacent property again. There's a subdivision here that you can see to the south that's within city limits of Overland Park, kind of more city density. And then there's a large tract of land here on the west side of Kenneth Road that's also within city limits of Overland Park. This aerial view here shows kind of even farther out view of the surrounding area. So again, you can kind of see this city density to the south. You have the state line here, this large tract of land to the west. But then, as you kind of get farther to the west, you get back into county land and older subdivisions. And then this is showing the zoning map of the surrounding area. Again, subject properties outlined in blue. And so you'll see the city of Overland Park, that large tract of land on the west side still has it's within city limits of Overland Park, but it still has the county zoning, the rural zoning. And so it'll just stay that way until somebody develops it. To the south, this subdivision has R1 zoning, which is obviously a city zoning. And then as you look to the north of the property, there is the RLD zoning again, which has a 3-acre minimum, more rural zoning, but smaller lot sizes. And then you have the PRN2 zoning. And that PRN2 zoning is the Stonehaven at Lockwood plat with 6 lots that was approved last year. And then as you go farther west, you again have this RLD zoning and the PRLD zoning that's essentially a 3-acre minimum lot size, more rural zoning, and then some RN1, and that's kind of an older subdivision there. So that just kind of shows you the surrounding zoning. And then this is a copy of the preliminary plat showing the lots and the street layout. Here's kind of the cul-de-sac. So right here where my mouse is where they're would be connecting to the street that's currently being under construction. You can see a couple of the tracks for the detention ponds. And then you can also see this easement here. It is a gas line easement that cuts through the property. And then over here, you can see where I was talking about earlier, this is where the emergency access and entrance would be, and it would just be a gate with a Knox box on it. And then also the plat is showing, and this is one thing I'll get to here, but the plat is also showing a kind of reserving future area for a future roundabout that Overland Park has planned for this intersection. And then this is the preliminary development plan, fairly similar to the preliminary plat. And then this drawing here is kind of a good drawing. It shows you, so this area here that's red cross-hatched is this property that we're talking about tonight, the 23 lots. And then here, if you go north, is property out in the county. And then when you get here, if you can see my arrow, these are the 6 lots on the Kansas side. That's the Stonehaven and Lockwood. And so you can see, so if you'll remember, it has a gated entrance and access to Kenneth Road. And so the idea is that that lots in this new proposed subdivision will travel through here onto this road, onto the Missouri side, and then eventually make their way back up to that 6-lot plat and then out onto Kenneth Road. So that's the access that's proposed currently. And then the rest of the remaining map area here just shows the the extended Loch Lloyd development on the Missouri side. And then this map also minimize it here a little bit, but it also shows the connections and the access points that Loch Lloyd has in terms of their gates for the Loch Lloyd development on the Missouri side. And maybe later the applicant can kind of go into a little bit more detail on that map. So those just kind of wanted to go through some of those pictures. So in terms of the minimum infrastructure review, so these will be, the new streets. Again, this also has the requirement that we talked about on the last application that that both 175th Street and Kenneth Road have to be a type B collector street. So the applicant has agreed to do add the shoulders that are required for that road requirement. In addition to that, there was also a traffic study that was submitted and accepted by Public Works, as well as the drainage study that was also reviewed and accepted by Public Works. Going on to wastewater disposal. So the developer is proposing to provide and construct sanitary sewers to the subdivision. Those sanitary sewers will connect to the existing sanitary sewer system in the existing Loch Lloyd development. So this wastewater treatment is actually, and this is same as how it was on the Stonehaven at Loch Lloyd plat, that there's an agreement with Johnson County Wastewater to treat and process the wastewater. And so the developer is coordinating with JCW, and they'll have to amend that existing interlocal agreement. And so there's a stipulation about that. But Johnson County Wastewater had no concerns with this connection as long as they amend that agreement. In terms of water supply, it'll be Water One districts supplying the water. And so this application does comply with all the minimum infrastructure requirements. And so as we go then into the golden criteria, with in a kind of walked through some of that when we were looking at the pictures in the zoning map, but again, in this area, there is a mix of different residential zoning districts that are close by the subject property, which does again lend the proposed rezoning and plat to be well suited for the neighborhood. Different sized lots. So this proposed 2-acre residential zoning is consistent with the zoning obviously on the Johnson County side, and uses of nearby properties that will blend in well with the area, and will continue that pattern of low density residential uses in the area. And again, there is similar development that already exists in this area and is compatible with the surrounding residential uses that range from 1/3 acre lot sizes to a 200-acre parcel. In terms of detrimental effects to nearby parcels, in the short term, again, noise, dust, and construction that's related to the construction of the subdivision would be detrimental effects short term. After construction is complete, then detrimental effects should be minimal. In terms of the rural comprehensive plan, this site is in the growth policy area, the agricultural residential growth policy area of the Blue Valley area plan. And so that calls for and states that this area is appropriate for orderly and reasonable expansion of existing residential development areas if adequate infrastructure exists, which in this case, infrastructure has been addressed and it does comply with the minimum infrastructure requirements. Therefore, this proposal is in keeping with the comprehensive plan. You'll also see in the back of the packet that City of Overland Park submitted a letter and had several comments on the application. And, some of those comments were able to be addressed, such as right-of-way requirements, showing that future area for the roundabout. It also talked about storm drainage requirements, and those have all been required and reviewed and addressed. So the one items is there, so there is one plat exception request in regard to this plat, which is this overlinked cul-de-sac. And so we're really measuring that overlinked cul-de-sac from kind of from here all the way to the end here to where that emergency access and the cul-de-sac ends off of 175th Street. And so the PRN2 zoning requires that cul-de-sac streets be no longer than 700 feet. And so this proposed cul-de-sac is about 2,800 feet. So that also includes 2 other cul-de-sacs that do not connect to other streets. So that length, it's about 4 times, the maximum allowed. So staff has reviewed that plat exception and reviewed the criteria that we use for plat exceptions and really found that, so staff is not recommending approval of that plat exception for kind of all the reasons set forth here in the staff report. However, associated with that, planning staff would recommend approval, I think, of the preliminary plat if the applicant provided public street access to 175th Street. And that would eliminate that overlinked cul-de-sac. And just a side note, if we have conversations later, I think staff has also would recommend that connection off of 175th Street instead of Kenneth Road due to the county's street spacing requirements in our regulations. So there are also a few lots that do not meet the lot to depth width ratio requirement of that maximum 3:1 ratio. And again, this is a planned zoning district. And so there is flexibility built into plan zoning. And so, one of the reasons for asking for some flexibility with that ratio is due to the existing natural gas pipeline that I pointed out earlier. And then in addition that the plat shows 2 detention ponds, which are required for stormwater management. So those are the 2 kind of major reasons asking for some flexibility. And staff has reviewed that request and finds that acceptable. Also in your packet, you'll see a memo from the Public Works Department. The Building Codes Department, again, just stated that, water lines will be required, fire hydrants will be required, and that they'll have to have that proper gate and access with a Knox box. So those are the basic requirements from the Building Code Department. You also will see a memo from the Johnson County Wastewater District talking about that amendment to that interlocal agreement that I was speaking about earlier. Other than that, JCW is supportive of the application. And then the City of Overland Parks memo is also attached in the back. So given that, so planning staff is recommending approval of the PRN2 rezoning, but denial of the preliminary plat and denial of the plat exception for the overlength cul-de-sac. But do note that on page 16, if the zoning board does recommend approval of the rezoning and the preliminary plat and plat exception, there are some recommended stipulations for the plat. Again, are pretty typical stipulations for plats. Yeah, I think at this point, I'll probably stop, see if there's questions. And
All right. Thank you, Diane. Good report. Questions?
I have two questions, Ken Klingon-Smith. Is it still accurate? I recall when we reviewed the 6 lots at the entrance with the gate that Lock Load was going to be restricting traffic or encouraging them to restrict traffic unrelated to the traffic on Kenneth Road to just be on that side of the lake. Is that still accurate? And be in place for this as well? Or if not, I'll wait to the applicant on that one then. And then the second thing was, I recall we had a lot of discussion related to the fire department and access to the property and building. Is that fire gate, is that initially going to be done and prepared and ready and open for access? And how have they, I know Overland Park kind of indicated that there was a sentence in here about how they kind of approved it, but I know last time we had a lot of discussion on that. Is all those kind of concerns been looked at as well?
yes, they have. So I had direct conversations, with Anush Fardapur, who's the county's building official. He is fine with showing the emergency access with the gate and the Knox box. That satisfies the fire code requirements for emergency access. I also had a direct phone call with Mike Casey. So this is now within the City of Overland Park Fire District jurisdiction, and had a direct phone call with him and stated the same thing, that it does meet the fire code requirements, and had no issues in terms of that requirement. So there's no, fire code or safety issues with that. It's really kind of more of these kind of planning principles in terms of connectivity to the arterial streets.
Is there a connection? I see the fire connection to the cul-de-sac to 179th Street. Is there a connection from the cul-de-sac to Kenneth Road, or is there not a connection on that?
There is not, no.
On the map right up, yeah, there's not. Okay.
Kind of zoom in here a little.
Like where the, yeah, okay.
So this will be where the emergency access is. And then this cul-de-sac over here does not have any connection to Kenneth Road.
Okay, thanks for zooming in on that. Those are my two questions for right now.
More questions for staff at this time? Okay. Thanks, Diane. At this time, I will hear from the applicant.
My name is Dale Brook. I live at 11725 Ballymore Court in Parkville, Missouri, 64152. I've been associated with Lock Lloyd since 2003. I've been the main guy in the development since 2012. I have worked with our engineers, since probably 2005-ish, roughly. We make a great team. We've developed a lot of things at Lock Lloyd. First of all, thank you for taking the time to review this. I'm sorry it's late tonight. I am as tired as you are, unfortunately. I want to thank Sean and Diane. They've been extremely helpful for us in guiding us through this. I like people when they make it very clear. Diane made it very clear and Sean made it very clear that there's going to be a plat exception here. And so I'm going to focus on that. I mean, because everything else, like the Stonehaven development, we conformed everything. And obviously it's in Loch Lloyd. We do everything to the nth degree to make it good. Loch Lloyd has been around for a little over 30 years now. It was a dream started by Harry Lloyd and then continued with when Neil Patterson and Cliff Ely purchased it to where it is today. This is the second expansion of Loch Lloyd into the state of Kansas. First one obviously is Stonehaven, and then the second one is here. The Stonehaven development, we are nearing completion. The lots will be finished, blacktopped and finished by end of July, into this month, hoping weather agrees. You know, I just want to tell you that the demand for 2 acre lots, we literally have we've developed 31 lots, 2 of which we can't sell because of FAA requirements in the Kansas side. The other 29 lots are under contract to close and will be closed by the end of August. So the village of Loch Lloyd, the private nature of this development is where people want to live. So I'm going to focus on that particular thing, the private setting that our customer wants. Again, Diane hit on it pretty hard. It meets all fire codes, so the fire people have approved it. So that's one plus thing. The neighborhood, we have heard from the neighborhood directly east of the development. It's in the state of Missouri. And they appreciate the ability that there's going to be 2 acre lots because they basically have 2 acre lots. It's a dead end cul-de-sac. It's about 1,750 feet long, has 13 homes on it. So the neighboring on the Missouri side is very conducive to what we're trying to do. I'm going to tell you that all the roads that we are building will not cost Johnson County any money because the roads will be private, be funded, built by the developer, and then the developer will hand it over to the HOA. The covenants are already filed on this property. In fact, they were filed back in 2009. So they're the same exact covenants that have been filed in all of Loch Lloyd. 2,100 square foot minimum building requirement. I will tell you that our gut's telling us the average price of the home there will be roughly $2 million. In Stonehaven, that development, those 29 lots that we're selling, the homes are going to range anywhere from 1.7 million to, we actually have someone looking at spending $5 million on a home there. The length of the road, the cul-de-sac at 2,800 feet. Actually, I'm going to give you a little bit more statistics. From the end of the cul-de-sac to actually leaving onto Kenneth Road is 7,009 feet. Currently inside of Loch Lloyd, which is the map that, Diane, if you could maybe put that back up. Currently inside Loch Lloyd, there are 115 residences, which is roughly 22% of all the residents in Loch Lloyd currently travel more than the 7,009 feet to get to an exit. So I'll point out, so the one in blue, so we have 3 access points for all residents to use. The one in blue there is the northernmost, which dumps onto Kenneth Road in Missouri. The one keep going down. The second one in blue there is the original entry that dumped out on the east onto Holmes Road. And then obviously you know about the one dumping onto Kenneth Road on the Kansas side through the Stonehaven development. All these gates will have a building associated with them. So they'll be staffed. The two staff and the one currently considered for the Kenneth Road into Kansas will not be staffed at this point, but will be monitored through cameras because, to hit your point, Ken, the traffic is going to be limited there. So about 25, probably more like about 30% of the development, existing development, will be allowed to enter from that into that ingress egress point. Obviously, we can't prevent people from exiting because it's impossible, because they could go wherever they want to go. But as far as entering the development, it's about 30% of the residents. So 500, so about 150 people will be able to access that part, that entry point. I don't really have anything else. I will say one thing that, Phil Brandt, the email you received, his primary concern is security. And we want to continue that trend, have a private gated community and only have the emergency ingress egress point on the new development we're trying to do here. Phil Brandt was also very instrumental in worrying about security on the Stonehaven side too. He is I'll just say a voice of Loch Lloyd to that regard. And so, we're actually going to meet with the people that I talked to you about on Allendale. We're actually going to meet with them in July at some point because there's a resident there that actually reached out to our engineer. And we're going to talk to them about, because their big concern is water retention, which is obviously the same concern that the Stonehaven plat had. And we've addressed it with, I think he said, John, with curb and gutter. And obviously the plat here, the retention ponds are literally the one retention pond close to Kenneth Road, basically captures all the water that is already water shedding across the property from across Kenneth Road. And then the other one that's closer to is another retention pond that actually will feed into another retention pond that then feeds into the lake at Loch Lloyd. So the stormwater retention has been well addressed, and it will be a concern that I guarantee we will have more than one meeting with those residents talking about that, because we've had now 3 with the residents on just the Stonehaven development. They talk about concerns about rock. We actually we rent seismographs to make sure that, as we're going through the rock, and we put them on the property line, making sure there's nothing, and we've had no issues as far as potential damaging. And when we develop, we save every tree possible. And we will literally do a footprint that'll cut through about an 80-foot swatch through this ground, and we'll save all the trees. We were fortunate enough that Sean and Diane met us, and we showed them the Stonehaven development, and that's exactly what we did. We drove through Stonehaven, and it was a lot of trees to save. In fact, Stonehaven, we moved the road slightly so we could save 2 trees. It's very important to us because, contrary to popular belief, water and trees sell lots. So I'll leave it open to questions.
Okay. Thanks, Dale. All right, questions?
Can I ask,
Applicant?
so why would you be opposed to putting another entrance or exit on the other cul-de-sac that staff is wanting to do for the approval? Your opinion on that?
Well, the opinion is that the existing HOA that have the govern the CCNRs, they will eventually have to maintain that. And they don't feel it's necessary to maintain yet another gate.
Gotcha.
When the 175th is like less than, it's probably about 2 miles from the existing Kenneth Road gate.
That one will it always be
Oh.
cameras, or will it ever have a manned
Well-
person at the Stonehaven?
It'll, I can't answer because I don't know
Not
what the
known.
South HOA will do. So, but it is designed, it's literally identical to the gatehouse that is in the old entry off of Holmes Road. Same exact stonework, same exact everything.
And then when you were saying it would be limited to, I can't remember the exact number, 150, 120 cars entering.
Residents,
Or
probably about
residents.
150, about 30% of Loch Lloyd. When it's fully developed, there'll be about 500 homes there.
Okay, and will they have a permit or something? Like, how are you gonna regulate it?
So we have, it's called ABDI.
Mhm.
It's a system that you put little RFID tags on your headlamp.
Okay.
We could specifically program those. So if you lived in the Stonehaven development, we could specifically say you could enter through that gate. If you lived at, on Spyglass, which is on the north side, we could literally say you cannot enter through that gate and it won't work.
So even if somebody was coming to visit somebody who lived in Stonehaven and lived like what you said, they would have to come in that entrance to go all the way over to Stonehaven to visit their friend? Because the gate's not
So-
gonna open
so
for them?
If you have, okay, it's a pretty complex system. If you have the ability to enter the gate, you will also have the ability to get on your phone and send an RFID temporary phone on your Apple phone. And then they could put that in front of the reader and it'll open the gate for them.
Okay, so there could be the opportunity at different times if someone's
Correct.
having a party or whatever, they could allow more people to come into that gate.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
More questions? Okay, I think you can sit down and Dale, we may have some questions for you later. Public comments at this time. Just a reminder, we have 3 minutes and make sure you state your name and address.
Tim McQuaid, 6436 Norwood, Mission Hills, Kansas. My brother and I are here. We own the 200 acres to the west, right across from the 65 acres that you have. That was all part of the Winston farm at one time. Now, we have bought that land 20-some years ago, and we're gonna develop it in the future. Loch Lloyd is a great neighbor. They've done a great job. We're very excited about this 65-acre development. What we've seen looks terrific. Our only concern, and it looks like you've addressed one, is the watershed. The retention ponds should handle. Let's go back up to our property there. How do I get ours to? Well, I want to go to our property and just show. There we go. Overland Park, right here. So just take a, oh, right here, okay. So on this part of the property, I'm drawing a line from north to south, not very straight, but that's the ridge. Now, as you know, Kansas takes care of all the sewers for Loch Lloyd. All flows back and they operate that. Sanitary sewer, not storm, all sanitary. So that ridge right there has to flow to Loch Lloyd sewer for our property. So what we're requesting, we want to make sure that we have a spur that comes from Kansas over Kenneth Road so that we can sewer just that. It's about a 60-acre parcel. The rest of it going to the west would come here and down through that other development. Sanitary. sanitary only. Storm sewer is a whole different issue. But the sanitary sewer, and since Johnson County is taking care of all that sewer for the Missouri property and now this parcel, we want to make sure that you consider our situation as well for future development. And I think the sanitary sewer people should be aware of that. And other than that, we're in full support and agreement. But I want the county to look at that and take into our consideration before you just start handing over a piece of property, another 65 acres in the sewer district.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
I don't need 3 minutes. I'll get out here quick. I'm Jack Epps. I'm 7500 College Boulevard. And I know a few of the folks up there is laughing at me, but I just wanted to say on behalf of Chet Shelton, I'm here representing him and the what's it called, the Hillside Airport. We are excited about the opportunity to have more folks coming out there, and we think the plan works really well. And we don't have any objections to the plan. We're pleased that the developer is complying with the requirements of the airstrip easement agreement, and the height restrictions and so forth that have been addressed in the plane, that artificial plane. And I think the only thing that we want to make sure that we do, the other thing we want to address is to the right of first refusal, that rights that go to Chet and Sheldon, and that any property sold in that servient easement area need to be subject to a right of first refusal. And it would run with the land. And so any property owners, lot owners that buy in that development or in that development along that strip are going to be subject to that right of first refusal as well. And kind of a wrinkle, but something we ought to address up front. And if they're not made aware and it comes up later, it could be a problem. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody still awake?
Mhm.
My name is Joe Shuck. I live at 17218 South Allendale Drive. We're one of the neighbors, Dale, to the east of you on the Missouri side. And our property, sitting on our property, backs up to lot 13. And we have a pond at the bottom end of our property that feeds down into the little other collecting pond into the lake. And there's also, that's fed by that's a little ravine on the Missouri side. It's like a little valley that runs into there, and it's spring fed. And Andrew Fahey, who's my immediate neighbor to the south, has expressed concern about what would happen if the construction gets into that water situation and what might happen to that spring. That's one thing. I think that pipe, there's a pipe on lot 10. It looks like that drains down, and I don't know what that's going to do because it's still on your side, on the Kansas side. And then there are two properties in lot 9 and lot 10 that are very close to the edge. And our properties are all at least 3 acres on Allendale. And so everybody's worried about how close those are to the back end of the lots where they are. And I know those lots are small. And so those two neighbors are concerned about that. And then there was one other thing, Cynthia, what was it? Remember? But first of all, yeah, we're very excited about this finally coming to fruition. And if you'd have done it 10 years ago, there'd have been way fewer trees. Because that was a cow pasture 10 years ago. Well, I know, no. Oh, no, yeah, well, there's a lot of them in there, so. But those are the concerns that we had about just that water situation with that spring. And then, then the digging of foundations, it's all rock. Everything we have is rock. And so I know we've lived with, as that development has happened immediately to the north of us, because our property butts up to the south end of the last property around yeah. And so I would just want to make sure that there's the seismograph thing answered that, but I just want to make sure that we might be included in some of those kinds of remediation thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh my, that's crazy. That's awesome.
That's cool.
Thank you. Okay. Any more questions? What, Ken?
Going online.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, nobody online, no other questions. We're gonna close the public well, let me back up. Before we do that, so we had 2 or 3 issues brought up. So Dale, would you like to address, let me see, I can read the sanitary sewer issue, the right-of-way rights and the water quality?
The sanitary sewer issue, though we will try, the issue we have is the infrastructure that was built long ago by Lock Lloyd sized pipes to handle a certain number of homes. So they could handle the 23 that we're building. I cannot speak to if they could handle more, because I don't know exactly the size of the pipe. It's either a 3-inch or a 4-inch pipe. And then I don't know what a 3-inch pipe or a 4-inch pipe could handle. So it's one of those things. And plus, our sanitary sewer system is all low. Everybody has a grinder pump.
Right.
So it's not,
I
it
think,
doesn't flow by gravity. It flows by a grinder pump moving it along.
yeah, I think
So-
that's fair enough. And I think their main concern was that the city consider that as they extended infrastructure that way.
Yeah, I can't imagine that Sundance Ridge doesn't have sewer relatively close to their property.
Right.
Because obviously you can't do a 3 per acre development without having sanitary sewers there
Right.
from Overland Park. So I can't imagine they couldn't get it from there. I personally, again, I'm not an engineer, but I don't think Lock Lloyd's sewer system would have the capacity to handle whatever additional, because literally, Diane hit to it, every time we develop something new, we have to go back to Johnson County, back to the engineers that developed and designed the Lock Lloyd system to determine how many lots can we actually develop.
Okay.
So,
Then I'm gonna assume this easement and right of refusal and all that, that's an offline
Yeah,
issue. That's
we'll-
not for
we'll-
us.
We'll work through that, correct.
I do, and then I think the other gentleman had a concern about, basically your stormwater management
Mention-
plan during construction.
Correct. The stormwater retention, I think I'd like to just meet with you. Yeah. I'd like to just meet with you because, like I said, with Stonehaven people, we met with them 3 different times. Once to explain exactly what we're gonna be doing, and 2 more times with updates. And we have no problem doing that because we're totally transparent, because we want to make sure that what you have today, you will have tomorrow. I mean, so,
Right.
so we would love to take that offline. And in fact, Mr. Fahey, right? Yeah, Mr. Fahey, we've told him that between now and the end of July, we will meet with you.
I think also if you can, during those meetings, it sounded like maybe they were also maybe just talking a little bit about your SWIP and, how you're gonna take care of runoff and erosion and sedimentation during the grading process. And I think if you explain the SWIP and the inspections after the rains and all that, I think that will help a lot.
Yep.
Okay.
Always keep in mind though that, the property itself has a lot of trees. And, along 175th and Kenneth Road, you probably will not be able to see what's going on behind this. So the trees are so thick. And we have no intention of taking any of those trees down because it provides a natural buffer and the privacy that Loch Lloyd residents want. So, and we'll do the same on the Allendale side of the equation too.
Perfect.
Was
Okay,
that-
now I think
that
unless those,
Okay.
unless those answers to questions spawned more questions, I think we'll close the public comments and we can discuss on the board.
The sewer things in my wheelhouse. So.
Mhm. I think just overall, so I like to, yeah, you can. Unless you just like to stand. You know, sitting is the new smoking, so if you'd like to stand. So I think, you know, I like to have staffs back whenever we can. I think that, you know, given the nature of the Loch Lloyd and the gated community and the fact that and I'll ask for your opinion here a little bit too, staff, but probably the reason that cul-de-sac length was put in the regulations was so people could get out of their neighborhood, right? I mean, I feel like probably most people that live in Loch Lloyd don't want to get out of their neighborhood.
There's,
Just
uh,
that's just a perception,
Yeah,
right?
Sean Penn, I'll answer for part of staff. That is part of it. The connectivity, reason why staff is recommending additional connectivity is certainly for ingress and egress for the residents, and then also any future connections surrounding. Here you would be connecting to an arterial, but in some ways it is a little bit unique in that this development that is proposed is completely connected to an existing gated community. So there are really no other street connections through the interior. However, what we're recommending is the connection to the public arterial street system. But this is, again, it's a little bit different situation with the type of development as you indicate. Yeah.
And just to finish that thought, you know, and also in a roundabout way, they might be doing us a favor by keeping that traffic off of 175th Street, at least for the foreseeable future. So just for the record, I like to have staffs back and like to follow the recommendation, but I think you followed the rules and I think that you made the call based on what's in place, but I mean, to continue the discussion, but I wouldn't have a problem.
No, I
The-
totally,
the-
Ross, I totally agree with everything you said. This is definitely an exceptional situation. But more importantly, Loch Lloyd has a proven track record of doing things well.
Yeah, that's a
And right,
good,
so-
I agree with that too.
Had they not, if this was a totally new thing, that might be a little hard, but I think everybody knows what type of people they are. what
Yeah,
they
I
produce.
think you're right. It was, you know, it's well thought out. They know what they're doing. It's a continuation. They're not trying to make a left turn. It's a continuation of what they're trying to do. So,
This is Ken, I just wanted to comment on the zoning. I think, especially based on our the last one we just kind of reviewed, I think the zoning on this is accurate or appropriate, even though it's in the unincorporated area and, you know, but it's surrounded by Overland Park. The subdivision next to it is 0.75 acres to 1 acre lots. The property that's across the streets Overland Park, so that's ideally gonna be dense. And we already had approved the PRN2 for the 6 lots that are the entranceway into Loch Lloyd. So I'm in support of the rezoning of that for those reasons. Even though in other areas of the Stillwell, I would not be.
very good. Brad, anything?
I agree with what's been said. I really appreciate the applicant being here tonight. I appreciate their history and it seems like they have a stellar reputation and I think as a board, that's something that I value and I think we all value.
Well said. Okay.
Well, the question for staff, that interlocal agreement related to sewers, does that come with the final plat? Like that has to be done before the final plat? So the preliminary plat's not an issue? Not having that in place?
Yeah, that's correct. That agreement will come with the final plat, although we do have a stipulation about it, just that, you know, that they'll need to get that agreement done, but they will have to come back separately for the final plat if approved. And we'll continue to have that stipulation in there. And then, I think when it gets to the final plat, the stipulation will just say that that agreement needs to be amended prior to recording the final plat.
Great.
And I think that's consistent with what we did on the first.
Thank you. And just another quick question, Dale, I apologize. What's the timeline that you're looking at for both the previously approved 6 lots and as well as this?
So the 6 lots, we will close on 4 of those 6 lots by the end of August. And 2 of those 4 lots will probably have foundations in the ground before the end of the year.
Okay.
This particular development, we still have to go through the planning and all that stuff, and we expect final approval to be at the November meeting. So most likely we will start, I think the last development, they said you will start probably trying to put in sewers, sanitary sewers and those type of things, but obviously we couldn't do any streets. And timing for selling these lots, it's a crapshoot with the winter weather, but if everything went very well, we'd anticipate having the same type of sales like this year, July and August.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
One more question, Dale, while you're up there. If the board had recommends approval of the rezoning and the preliminary plat, there's some stipulations. Have you guys reviewed those and are you agreeable to those stipulations?
Yes, we've looked at those and we also looked at the ones that Diane said if you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we are okay with all those stipulations.
Okay,
Very similar to what was at
yeah,
Stonehaven.
I don't think there's anything outstanding in there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis?
Yes, I've dealt with these people before. They're very straightforward and I have no problems.
Okay. All right, does anybody want to make a motion? I'm gonna do it. I'll do it. I'm out of voice. Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the PR into rezoning and approve the preliminary development plan as a preliminary plat for the 23-acre lot subdivision known as Loch Lloyd Estates Blue Valley. And we would also approve the plat exception request for the overlength cul-de-sac. But along with the approval is subject to the recommended stipulations 1 through 22, beginning on page 16 of the staff report.
Diane Wicklund, and maybe if, if the board can state some reasons for approval of the plat exception.
The reasons for approval are, I think that the overlength cul-de-sac goes with the character of the current Loch Lloyd community. I think probably their desire to have limited access points is consistent with that. And I think with the fire access and the Knox block, I think, community security is and safety is addressed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ken Klingensmith, I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think we can try for a voice vote. All in favor of the approval of the zoning and the preliminary plat and the exception, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes, so it will go up. It's as a recommendation for approval, so it will go, Diane.
Yes, so this will go to the Board of County Commissioner, your recommendation again on August 11th, 9:30 a.m. Here in this room.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's see, that's the end of items of business before the board. We got other business. Kelly,
Kelly Ross, I just had a quick question just from an education standpoint for my part. So on the last or the first application, there was the comment of the two landowners, I believe the name was Greg and Chris, that wanted to have the opportunity to, I noticed they sent in a letter to staff in May. So what is the procedure? Like, you said, would you guys reach out to them and then have that conversation, or kind of to what Dennis had said, that, staff reaching out more, because they did, it was known back in May that they had this interest or whatever. I'm just curious what,
Maybe I can start and Sean can add, but, so those comments from Chris and Greg, we did forward that, email to the applicant and to the landowners, and so they had that. So it's really their, it's really their responsibility to talk with neighbors. We always encourage them to hold their own neighborhood meeting.
oh no, I'm sorry, I may have confused. I was talking more from the standpoint that Sean had said that he didn't know that there was maybe the desire, because there wasn't a formal application about wanting to develop that land further south, and that's why y'all didn't inquire about the possibility of stubbing that road versus making it a cul-de-sac, and be more forward thinking of their 100 acres. I think they both. So I think that was because you had said that you didn't do anything about it because you didn't know about it, but there was a letter in May that they were wanting to do that. So it was known in May that that was something they had in the plan. So that's why I'm asking staff. Why wouldn't staff have gone and called them in for a conversation as they were looking at this whole plan?
Sean Penley, planning staff. So to answer the question as to why staff didn't reach out to those owners after they had inquired about the request for an access. Yes, we received the email following the application. We explained to those owners to the south that we would share that with the applicant. That was not made known to staff at the time of the submittal. This application has been a long time in review. At the time the application was first submitted, as we indicated, it was a different density, different proposal. They changed it. We didn't require or reach out to the owners to ask about any further follow-up because the applicant was not wanting to provide any further connection. Staff didn't require any connection to the south because we had no other proposal from the adjacent owners for subdivision. Did they indicate that at some point in the future they want to develop? Yes. But we couldn't hold up this proposal for the current application that was before us on this proposed zoning and subdivision. It's something that really, it's kind of it has to be a cooperation between an applicant and the adjacent property owners. Really, it's kind of more there, as Diane said, it's really up to them to see whether or not they want to be willing to do that. But staff wouldn't require it because those properties are developed. So
Yeah, but
could
like
they,
kind
could
of-
they
sorry to
subdivide and
interrupt,
could
but
they?
the golden rule, or like you guys always talk about looking at the connectivity of an area and stuff like that. And then I'm just referring back to the one that we declined last month on 191st and Knoll. And in that situation, you left the stubbed road for the purpose of it to continue on, and those neighbors didn't even want that. So now you're kind of having an opposite argument. So, because we kind of have to think, I understand like the applicant that it's hand, but we're also sort of also looking at the next step maybe and those kind of things. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, because connectivity seems to be a big push with why we do stuff. And the applicant from last month that was in there, even though the neighbors didn't want that, or the neighboring people. And now this time we have this, and it's kind of we're not following the same philosophy, unless I'm confusing it a little bit. That's okay.
I'll try again. Sean Penley, planning staff. Every case is different. Every site is different. The case that went before the zoning board last month and was going to be remanded to come back before you. Yes, staff had recommended connection. In that case, there were no connections proposed. This would have been their only connection out, as opposed to their one and only access in a null. Again, for this development, the proposed applications before the board tonight already has one connection to the north. They were providing that. They have another connection to the east. We felt that for the application that was before the board that they had provided connectivity that would be needed for what we would recommend. Is there other opportunities that could be further connections? Yes. But again, we didn't require that or recommend that because really there was no other proposed development. If the owners to the south had brought forward to staff and had scheduled a pre-application meeting and said, hey, look, we have designs, that concepts that we want to develop, certainly we would entertain that. We would try to coordinate with the applicant to do that. It's just, it's difficult when those existing surrounding properties that they're inquiring about are already developed. And if we've got other connections elsewhere, that's why we wouldn't really push for additional connections there.
But if you didn't have that cul-de-sac, that may allow that whole property to, or plat to be replatted to meet the other zoning. So I don't know. I mean, it just, to me, it seemed like that could have been, you knew people want this in the future. They were having problems with the cul-de-sacs, creating issues with, the 3, acre minimum thing. So then it bumped it to a different zoning. So I don't know, just to me, it would have seemed like almost something that would have looked into to see if it would have sufficed both situations, but I know everyone's different.
And I think you raise all good points in this conversation that we're having, we have as planning staff all the time, this idea of connectivity and looking into the future is challenging, right? There's not easy answers to it, especially out in the county. When you look at connectivity in the cities, they have a street grid. It's a lot easier to kind of have those stub streets, and they have a local and collector street system laid out. It's much more challenging, I think, out here in the county. And you're raising the very questions and conversation that we have. So I think like Sean said, it is case by case that we look at it. And I think staff and zoning boards, we have to kind of work together on trying to figure out what makes the best sense for connectivity. And also, working with the applicants, and, like Sean said, the applicant was not, didn't want to, do that stub street. And so then that's the application that they submit that comes before you. And then, you certainly have, then it's to you and you review it, your recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
no, those are all good answers. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to learn, but I don't want to keep everybody else because I'm curious. Sorry.
Any other business? We had a wonderful.
Yep, kudos to Ken.
No.
Like we say, we just puzzle together, the community brings the spirit.
Yep. All right, perfect. All right, everybody. Do I have a motion for adjournment then?
And I'll motion to adjourn.
All right, motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye. All right, we stand adjourned until what day next month? August 3rd? All right, thanks, everybody.